Howdy folks, welcome to CompTIA A plus practice questions. Now as you guys can see, this is version 2, so this will be the second video I'm making for Core 2. If you don't know what Core 2 is, well guys, that's the second exam for A plus. So the code for the exam is on the screen. It's 220-1102. Wow, try saying that 3 times fast. So that will be the second exam for the course. This is the second video. I've already made 2 for Core 1. And who knows, maybe I'll make a third one for Core 1 and Core 2 if this goes well. Right guys, so if you would like to support the channel, now would be a good time to go and hit that like button. So please show the channel some love and give it a like. It does support me and the channel when you do that. And if you'd like to know when I release more videos like this one, or possibly just general videos for training, maybe consider subscribing as well, guys. Alright, let's get started with question 1. One of the managers at a client's company reports that his staff members often forget the passwords to their mobile devices and applications. Which of the following should you do to reduce the number of help desk tickets submitted? So this manager or managers, they're sitting with a bit of a conundrum. They've got people that keep logging tickets for, well, getting logged out of the devices continuously. And as you can imagine, having to reset people's passwords every day, almost the whole day, can be very annoying. So what can we do to help, well, mitigate against that? If you look at answer A, it says increase the failed login attempts threshold. Well, that is a possible solution, but I wouldn't say that's the best solution. So what's going to happen there is people have the opportunity to type in their password wrong more times before they actually get locked out of the account. Because on average, after getting your passwords wrong a certain amount of times, normally it's approximately 3 times, the account would lock itself or it would time out. So by increasing the failed login attempts threshold, they will be able to, well, maybe type it in 4 times or 5 times or even more before it locks or times out. Now, I wouldn't say that's really going to solve the problem. On to B, remove complex password requirements. Guys, that's not a good idea. Now, yes, people probably will be able to remember their passwords easier because they won't be required to go and use a very long password or a very complex password. But in turn, you are sacrificing security, which is a very bad idea in any environment. Answer C, enable multi-factor authentication. So that is actually going to make it even more secure and even harder for them to remember how the heck to get into this. So, I mean, from a security perspective, that's probably great, but it's not going to solve our problem. In fact, it actually probably might actually end up making it worse. Answer D, implement a single sign-on with biometrics. Now, if you don't know what single sign-on is, normally we call it SSO for short. In other words, single sign-on. That means you or the user would go and log in the normal way, whatever that normal way might be. And once you've logged in, you would generally stay logged into this platform, this website, or whatever it is, until you go and log back out again or until you close the platform. So if you look at something like a web browser, for example, guys, once you've logged in on that web browser onto a certain website, if you go and open additional tabs and stuff, you'll stay logged in. But as soon as you close the browser entirely, then you might be required to log back in again. Same happens with the PC here. So you're going to stay logged in, or you're going to stay logged in on that phone. In this case, I believe it's a phone. And only once you actually close the session or you actually log out on the phone or you turn it off, only then would it maybe go and log out actually. And biometrics is just the way you go and verify that you are who you claim to be. So in this case, it's probably going to be a fingerprint. Moving on to question 2, folks. Which of the following is the most important environmental concern inside a data center? Alright, so we've got battery disposal. Now, batteries is not something we find commonly in a data center. I'm not saying you won't find them there. If you do find them there, it might possibly be from something like a UPS, if you know what a UPS is. That's an uninterruptible power supply. Now, I have encountered quite a few server rooms which have got massive UPS devices with massive batteries. So in the event of a power failure of some kind, then this UPS would basically keep your servers alive and keep them running for an X amount of time. So yeah, battery disposal, you want to go and do that properly, but I wouldn't say that's going to be the answer. But let's first have a look at the other ones. B says toner disposal. Folks, that's completely unrelated to the question. Toner is a type of ink. More specifically, it's ink for a laser printer. Why on earth would there be ink for a laser printer in your server room or your data center? Completely unrelated. So B is completely ruled out. Answer C, humidity. Now that sounds like a pretty good answer. So far, that is a better answer than answer A. Normally in a server room or a data center, folks, you want to strive for a humidity level of approximately 50%. Not too low, not too high. If it's too dry, then you're going to find there's going to be static taking place. Static is bad because you're going to blow something. If it is too high, condensation will take place. And as you can imagine, moisture and stuff on circuit boards, yeah, that is not exactly something we want. So it's never going to be perfectly at 50%, but just try and get it as close as possible to 50%. So if it's around 45 or 55, you know what, that should be fine. The last answer there is legacy servers. Now, legacy servers, that just simply means it's old servers, and we're not going to be too concerned about environmental concerns right there when it comes to legacy servers. Normally, we'll go and repurpose those. We'll go and sell those at a very reduced rate to your internal staff. You might go and strip them for parts, or you might even go donate them to a school or something. So the only ones that I would say here is a concern when it comes to environmental is A and C. C being the better one out of the two. So the answer here, folks, is C. Moving on. Question 3. You are troubleshooting a customer's PC and receive a phone call. You do not take the phone call and you set the phone to silent. Which of the following best describes your actions? All right, so you are receiving a phone call and you decided not to take this phone call. Instead, you actually put the phone on silent. So you basically ignore the phone calls, what we're saying here. So what did you just do? Did you avoid distractions? So far, that sounds like a pretty decent answer. Wouldn't you guys say? Did you deal appropriately with customer confidential material? Now, B, I think I'm going to rule that one out because we're not dealing with custom material here. Yes, you are troubleshooting a customer's PC, but this was about receiving a phone call. How would receiving a phone call have an influence on the customer's confidential material? It's not like you are removing their PC. It's not like you are disclosing what's on their PC. I mean, obviously, you're not going to be doing that. It's not like you are seeing stuff that is on the PC. I mean, if you did, then you would obviously call the customer and say, hey, come back here, come and close this, come and close that, that kind of stuff. This is about receiving a phone call. So I'm going to rule B out. C says adhere to user's privacy policy. You could, but it doesn't really feel applicable. Once again, you are working on a customer's PC, and if you saw something on a PC, you would call the customer. Now, that would be adhering to the user's privacy policy. But receiving a phone call on your own phone has got nothing to do with their privacy. This is just being polite. And the way I see it is if I'm your customer or your client, and I'm paying you by the hour to come and do a job for me, I'm not going to be very happy if you're taking phone calls for other customers or other things while I'm paying you by the hour because you're literally taking a phone call on my time then. So it's never mind. It's not just being polite. It's also, as a courtesy because this person is freaking paying you for crying out loud. The last one says set and meet timelines. Now, yeah, that's probably the second best answer here, but my best answer here, guys, would probably still be A. Avoid distractions. You need to remember this customer is paying you a fee. It's usually by the hour. And if you're going to be taking a phone call in that time, how do you think they're going to feel if they're paying you, let's say, $500 by the hour, and for half of that time you were sitting on the phone? Technically they are due for a refund, wouldn't you say? Maybe $250 or something like that. Or you need to work half an hour for free, to kind of, make this fair. So, yeah, the best answer here, folks, would be A. Avoid distractions. Moving on to question 4. A user's smartphone data usage is well above average. The user suspects an installed application is transmitting data in the background. The user would like to be alerted when an application attempts to communicate with the internet. Which of the following best addresses the user's concerns? All right, so this person has got a phone For some weird, funky reason, there's a lot of data usage in the background on his phone. At the moment, the user suspects they've got an application that's probably installed, it's probably running in the background, and this is most likely the culprit to the very high data usage. Now, how can the user best address this issue? So you'll notice the word best is in capitals there, and I even highlighted for you guys in a different color because that's how they will go and do it in the exam. In the exam, you'll find certain words will be highlighted for you in bold, and that is to basically get your attention to say, hey, this is very important. There's probably going to be more than one answer that's correct, and they want to see if you know or if you understand which one is more correct, which is the better one. Looking at answer A, operating system updates. Guys, that's not going to fix this issue. The person's got very high data usage. They're concerned that it might be an application in the background. Updating the system is not going to solve the issue for this application in the background. You might need to remove the application, although I don't see that as a possible answer here. So I would have said remove the application. That could be an answer. But if you think about it, you can only remove the application if you know which one it is. If you don't know which one it is, that's a bit of a pickle. On to B, antivirus. That could be an option, but it's not the best option. So this is possibly malware. You never know. I don't think it is, but you never know. But antivirus might not be the best way to tackle this problem. C, remote wipe. Now that is going to completely wipe the device in question. We don't want to wipe the device. That's a little drastic. The person is probably going to lose a lot of data. We don't want this user to be worse off than what they were. We just want to solve the problem. So remote wipe is very drastic. I mean, yes, it'll probably get rid of the issue, but that's very extreme, and they're going to have to go and reinstall all their applications, and they probably would have lost a lot of data. So C is probably going to be the most effective, but it's probably going to be the most drastic as well. So I'm going to rule C out for now. D, firewall. Now, guys, that seems like the correct answer to me. You'll notice on most smartphones these days, especially on certain brands, they've got built-in firewalls. If you don't have a built-in one, you can always go and download and install one, although that's probably going to make matters worse. But if you're lucky enough to find yourself a phone that's got a built-in firewall, how it works is, if it's configured correctly, well, actually by default it does it these days, as soon as a program wants to access the internet, it's going to pop up with a notification, and you as the user would have to give it permission. You're going to say, okay, cool. I allow this application access to the internet. Or I will allow this application access to my photos. Or I'll allow this application access to my videos, my gallery, my camera, my data. You get to choose what you want to allow and to what you want to allow it. So the best answer here, folks, is a firewall. Firewalls are not limited just to laptops and desktops, guys. You get them on phones and tablets too. They're actually very common. And if you've got the right make and model of phone, you'll find you will have these firewalls. I even have it on my phone. It comes out by default. And guys, I don't have the most expensive phone or the fanciest phone. I'm one of those kinds of guys. I don't believe in buying the best or the fanciest stuff. As long as it gets the job done, I'm a happy chappy. Anyway, I'm wasting time. Moving on to question 5. You have been tasked with installing a workstation that will be used for point of sale transactions. Alright, so that's the kind of computer you would find at a point of sale system. That's basically where someone pays cash or they pay with their card. They get an item, they probably bought a service or they bought an item from you or your business. So that's the kind of computer where this computer would go. So the point of sale system will process credit cards and loyalty cards. Which of the following encryption technologies should be used to secure the workstation in case of theft? So that little computer now, which you're basically using to go and do the transactions for people, when they buy items or a service from you or your business, what kind of encryption would we use in case that machine gets stolen entirely? Like someone literally comes during the night and they steal the whole freaking computer. What kind of encryption should we use on that machine so that if they steal it, we're not going to be too concerned? I'll still be able to sleep with peace of mind. Is it USB drive encryption? No, because we didn't even talk about using USB drives here. Is it B, data in transit encryption? Nowhere in this question does it mention this data in transit. We simply just mention it's a point of sale system, and we're concerned that if it gets stolen, that basically data might potentially land in the wrong hands. So data in transit encryption, folks, I'm going to rule that out as well. It's not A, it's not B. Is it C? Disk encryption. Now that sounds very plausible. A very good option for disk encryption would be something like BitLocker. This is something you'll find on Windows. It's only available on Enterprise or Professional Edition of most Windowses. So if you want to use BitLocker drive encryption of Windows operating systems, guys, you need to have Enterprise or Professional. Anything lower than that, you're not going to find it. So BitLocker drive encryption, which is disk encryption, by the way, it will encrypt the whole freaking hard drive. So it's not going to stop people from stealing the computer. It's not going to solve that problem. But should they steal this machine, they will not be able to get their slimy hands on any important information. That is the more important thing here. Companies are not too concerned about the actual device itself because normally assets are insured under the company insurance. Companies are generally more concerned about the data on that device. We do not want that data getting into the wrong hands. Potentially, this could be trade secrets for all we know. This could potentially be my opposition that's stealing these trade secrets. So that could be very dangerous, guys. The last answer here is file encryption. I'm going to rule it out because we want to encrypt the whole freaking machine. We're not just going to steal a file. We're going to steal the whole freaking machine. So you need to go and encrypt the whole freaking machine. So the answer here, guys, is C, disk encryption. Moving on, question 6. The chief executive officer, in other words, CEO, at a bank recently saw a news report about high-profile cybercrime where a remote access tool that the bank uses for support was also used in this crime. The report stated that attackers were able to brute force passwords to access systems, which the following would best limit the bank's risk. So basically what happened here is the bank's CEO, he or she may or may not really know what they're doing, but they saw a news report, and in this news report they saw a tool was being used for the purposes of, well, hacking, I suppose. And he noticed, or she noticed, that, you know what? Hang on a moment. Isn't that the tool we use in our bank? And yes, it is. So they saw a tool was being used for the purposes of hacking, and the way they were using that tool was to basically guess people's passwords. That's what they mean by brute force passwords. It's to basically crack the passwords. You can do this by guessing. It's unlikely that we're guessing it as a human being. That we're probably using some sort of software to go and guess these passwords slash crack these passwords. The concern here is the cracking of passwords and the software that the bank happens to use, which happens to be the same. So we need to choose two answers here, folks. We've got 6 answers to choose from. 2 of them are correct, 4 of them are not. You'll notice the word best is once again highlighted in capital letters and in red to draw attention to the fact that there might actually be more than 2 answers that's correct here. We want to know which 2 of these 6 answers is the best, the more correct ones. So the first answer is enable multi-factor authentication for each support account. Now that's a very viable answer so far right off the bat, because in the question they mentioned they were brute forcing passwords, which means they were cracking them, guessing them. Now if you were to go and enable multi-factor authentication, a user would have to prove they are who they claim to be in more than one way. So besides just a password, they would have to provide something else. They would have to provide a PIN. Most likely this would be something like a fingerprint, a smart card. You see where we're going with this. It's not just the password. So if they crack the password, it's not really going to help them because there's going to be a second layer keeping them the heck out. So far, A is a good answer. B, limit remote access to destinations inside the corporate network. Now that's going to kind of defeat the purposes of using that program. So you can't exactly get rid of the program. That's one of the concerns here. You need to use this program and you need to be able to connect remotely. So far B, I don't know, it doesn't seem like a good answer. C, block all support accounts from logging in from foreign countries. Now guys, you can't do that because if you're going to block your own support accounts from logging in from foreign countries, you're going to be blocking your own people. And at the end of the day, when you do need access for legitimate purposes, yeah, it's not going to work because how are you going to get the support you need? That's the whole reason why you've got this freaking program and why you've got these freaking accounts, and so that if and when you need assistance remotely, possibly from a foreign country, so that they can assist you. So blocking these accounts, guys, you're going to be chopping off your own nose. You don't want to do that. D. Configure a replacement remote access tool for support cases. Folks, changing the tool is not going to make a difference because they can actually do the exact same thing. Whether you use A or B, the hackers will just move on to B if you're using A and you're swapping to B. The hackers will just swap to B as well and you're sitting back in the same basket. So changing the tool is not going to make any difference. E. Purchase a password manager for remote access tool users. A password manager, guys, is not going to solve the problem. These hackers did not have the passwords. They were doing something called brute forcing the passwords, which means they were guessing the passwords. More accurately, they were cracking the passwords. Now, putting your passwords into a password manager is not going to make any difference whatsoever to these people that's doing a brute force on your passwords. A password manager is just so that you or the users can go and remember what your passwords are. So if you've got a lot of passwords and you need to write them down, you don't want to go and write that down onto a sticky note or onto a text document on your computer because someone can, always go and hack your computer and they can find these passwords. But if you put it into a password manager, that is a secure program of sorts which stores your passwords. So to get into this program, you would need a password and maybe some other forms of authentication. But at the end of the day, you might just need to remember one password now instead of 10 or 20 or 100 passwords. So a password manager is to protect your current passwords, but it's not going to prevent someone from cracking your passwords. F. Enforce account lockouts after 5 bad password attempts. Guys, that's a very good answer. So far, the answer here, folks, is A and F. That is the answers. Now, why is F such a good answer? Because they were brute forcing the passwords. Brute force is what? Like I said many, many, many times just now, it's to guess the passwords or to crack it. Now, if you were going to go and guess this is a human, or even if you're going to use softwares, if you're going to limit it to 5 attempts, they can use the world's best software, the best supercomputer to try and crack this password, and it's not going to help them one bit because as soon as they get to password 5, it's going to lock them out. It's going to lock the account, or it's going to time out the account. It's going to bring them to a complete grinding halt. They will not be able to crack the password because the account is, well, locked. So, yeah, A and F is your answers here, folks. Question 7. You have an incident handler who needs to preserve evidence for possible litigation. Which of the following will the incident handler most likely do to preserve the evidence? Alright, so guys, we've got evidence we need to preserve. This is most likely digital evidence. So what can we do, or what can this incident handler do to, well, preserve the evidence? Now, the first answer we've got available is inform law enforcement. Now, yes, we should probably inform law enforcement, but that would not necessarily preserve the evidence. So what should the incident handler do to preserve the evidence? What will most likely preserve the evidence? Informing law enforcement will not necessarily do that. B. Encrypt the files. Now, that is not something bad to go and do, but that will not necessarily preserve the evidence. That will secure the evidence to prevent it from being tampered with. But let's imagine for a moment you only have one hard drive. This could be a hard drive for all we know. Now, it's all good and well to go and encrypt out one hard drive, but what if someone misplaces that hard drive? Oopsie daisy. Now what? So if you look at answer C where it says clone any impacted hard drives. Now that sounds more like it. So yes, it's not necessarily secure, but we're not talking about securing the data. We're talking about preserving the data, making sure we don't actually lose the freaking data. So if you were to go and, well, make a copy of this data, cloning the hard drives in other words, if you find yourself in a sticky situation now where you or someone loses one of these drives, well, you just shrug your shoulders. No worries, we've got a backup. Answer D, contact the cyber insurance company. Now, that is also something you're going to do somewhere along the pipeline, but that's not going to preserve the evidence. So, just like you would go and call law enforcement, cyber security insurance is something you would go and call eventually, during the course of the day. But one of the first things you want to go and do is make a clone. And after you've made a clone, I would say go and, well, encrypt the files. So, my first answer here, folks, would be C, and then that would be followed by B. Moving on to question 8. Someone who is fraudulently claiming to be from a reputable bank calls one of your company employees. Which of the following describes this incident? So what's happening here, guys, is someone is calling from some weird number. They're claiming to be from your bank or this user's bank. They're not really from the bank. They're just pretending to be from the bank. And this is normally in the hopes of getting something sensitive, something of value. This could possibly be the person's login details. It could be their, identification number. It can be a lot of things. So what do we call that? Is it A, spear phishing? Now, spear phishing is when you or someone target a specific individual in a company. Now, nowhere in this question do they mention someone was specifically targeted. Nope. They simply mention someone is calling one of the users and they're claiming to be from the bank. So spear phishing is when I go and target a specific person in your company, that's assuming I'm the culprit here, and I want to get that specific person's details. This could be possibly an administrator, could be a manager, but I'm targeting that specific person and I want to get that specific person's details. So that's probably going to be via email. The fact that they say phishing is normally via email in most cases, and I'm kind of giving away the answer here. If you look at answer B, which is spoofing, is to pretend to be someone or something. So I could be spoofing an IP address, I could be spoofing a MAC address, spoofing an email address, you know. So here they don't mention outright in the question that the number is being, spoofed. They don't say that this number looks like it's from the bank. They don't mention anything about an email address, IP address, MAC address, or anything for that matter that looks like the original. They simply state that someone is pretending to be from the bank. Nowhere in the question does it say the number looks like it's from the bank. So I'm going to rule out B, which is spoofing, to pretend to be something you're not, or at least to go and forge something. B, more accurately, is to go and forge something. C, which is vishing, I probably am not pronouncing that correctly. I'm probably butchering that. You'll notice it's spelled very much the same as phishing. And it's because it very much is the same as phishing. Phishing is more accurately going to be email related. So if I were to send you an email and I pretend to be from some place like your bank in hopes of getting something of value, something sensitive like username and password, that would be phishing, guys. Now, vishing, which I'm probably saying wrong, that is if I call someone pretending to be someone like the bank. Huh, doesn't that sound familiar? Yep, because it's the answer. D, spyware is normally when there's some sort of, malware installed on your machine or the user's machine, which is basically spying on the person. It's kind of in the name there, isn't it? This could be potentially a keylogger, which records the person's keystrokes. It could be software that actually outright just literally streams live what the person is doing. You can actually see real time what they're doing, kind of like a video stream, if you want to call it that. So that would be spyware. Nowhere here do we say we're spying on anyone. Doesn't say anything about that. So folks, the answer here is going to be C, because someone is being called here by someone from, apparently a bank. It's pretending to be from a bank. So they're probably fishing for information, but they are doing it via phone call, which is why we're saying vishing. The V is because it is a phone call. Question 9. One of your users reports that their PC is running slowly. And that's something very common, obviously. You suspect that it's a badly fragmented hard drive. Which of the following tools should you use? Now, for those of you that don't know what it means when we say someone's hard drive is badly fragmented, we simply mean the hard drive is a mess. So you can imagine you've got a desk in front of you, a pretty decently sized desk. You've got a bunch of papers on there, and maybe on a Monday morning your desk is very neat and very organized. Now, as time goes by, this desk is going to get messy. I'm not going to say stuff is missing, but stuff is messy. So maybe by Wednesday, Thursday, if someone comes to you and asks you for a certain document, which is on your desk, you're going to be digging around, and you're going to be digging around because your stuff has gotten cluttered. You have no freaking idea where it is. And instead of taking you 60 seconds, it might take you 5 minutes or 10 minutes to find this document because, your desk is a mess. So the point here is you are going to find it, but it's going to take you longer because of your desk being a mess. Why am I giving you a desk as an example? Because a hard drive works in the same manner, at least if we refer to the old mechanical type. So in the beginning, your hard drive is going to be very neatly organized. It doesn't matter if it's full or not, it's going to be very neatly organized. And as time goes by, you delete stuff, you add stuff, and create stuff, and move stuff. So what's going to happen is, just like your disk, which gets, well, messy and unorganized, your hard drive gets messy and unorganized. So when you want to start a program, a game, or you're trying to open a file or a document, you'll notice as time goes by, your machine will get slower and slower and slower. And this is because the hard drive takes longer to find the freaking file, since it's all over the place and that's not exactly organized. So that's what we call fragmented. It means the hard drive is unorganized. And when you go and do something called defragment the hard drive, you are organizing the hard drive. So the right type of files are with, well, the right type of files. And the next time you open that program, that game, or that document, it's going to open a heck of a lot quicker. This is the same as you cleaning your desk, so that when you go look for a document, you can find it quicker. So when it comes to opening this magical tool called defragment, which one of the following 4 commands can we go and use? Or this, you can see it's basically like abbreviations, if you want to call it that. Which one of these 4 can I go and run to open defragment? If you look at the 4 answers, you can probably guess because of looking at the letters. So A, guys, which is MS Info 32, Microsoft Information 32. If you were to go to your run, if you go to search and you type in run and you go type in that, you can actually go type in all 4 of these. Nothing's going to break your machine. You can go type it in and see what actually pops up. Then you will know what the answer is going to be. That is simply going to display information about this machine you're on. It'll show you what operating system is installed, the build, the edition. It'll show you how much system memory it's got. A lot of very useful information. But that's all it does, is it displays information about the machine. So A, I'm going to rule that out because it's got nothing to do with defragmenting your hard drive. It simply shows you information. If you look at B, that is an actual tool that can do stuff, but it's mainly once again used to, well, display information. B is resource monitor, guys. So that will show you very accurately what your CPU usage is, your RAM, your hard drive, your network usage. And if something is using a lot of, let's say, RAM, for instance, you can see very accurately what is the culprit, and you can go and investigate it further. And you will potentially have the ability to go and kill that process if it's a process. C, which is actually the answer here, mind you, is defragment. It's the defragmentation GUI, as you can see in the name there. It'll allow you to see all your hard drives, and it's going to allow you to go and defragment your PC. Now, funny thing, guys, this is just an extra information I'm going to give you guys. It's not really part of this question or the course, and you don't need to know this for the exam. You don't actually need to go and defragment these hard drives these days. If it's a solid state, you don't have to do that. If it's a mechanical one, then yes, we still need to do that, but why do I say you don't need to? Because from Windows 10, this actually happens automatically. Unless you went and turned it off, which is not something I would recommend, this happens every 2 weeks automatically. So since it happens so freaking often, it's not going to be needed because your hard drive is constantly going to be organized. So if your machine is slow, it's probably because of something else. So yeah, the answer is C, but D, in case you're wondering what D is, that is Microsoft configuration. It's been around since the beginning of time. I mean, heck, you can even go to Microsoft XP and you'll find that you can go type that in. It looks almost identical from XP all the way to Windows 11. It looks identical. You'll find the exact same tabs. The only difference is from Windows 8, there's a tab that says Startup, but the tab is actually blank because everything that used to be under the Startup tab can now be found in your Task Manager under the tab which is also called Startup. So up to Windows 7, if you were to go to the Startup tab, you'd find those things in the Startup tab. But from Windows 8, 8.1, 10, and 11, it's not going to be there. It's literally going to be a blank tab. And you will have to go to your Task Manager to that tab that says Startup to find all the items that actually starts up with your machine in the background. Question 10. One of your users created a file on a shared drive and wants to prevent its data from being accidentally deleted by others. Which of the following applications should the user use to assist them with hiding the file? Right, first of all, guys, what I personally would have done, and I'm saying this because I see it's not an answer choice, I would have just gone onto those files and just changed their permissions to read only. And that's one way, might not be the best way, but that is one way to get the job done. By changing the permissions to read only, people would only be able to view the documents or the contents, maybe copy it, but they will not be able to go and delete it or edit it. Alright, so, but looking at their possible answers, they've got Device Manager. So for those of you not familiar with Device Manager, that is something you would go and use to see all the actual hardware components on your device. Whether this be a laptop, desktop, or server, this is what you would use to see all the hardware devices. And using this tool, so to speak, you can see whether the drivers are actually installed for these hardware components and if it's the correct driver. You'd also have the ability to go and install newer drivers or a driver if it's the first driver. You'll have the ability to go and remove a driver, which they call rolling back a driver. You can go and troubleshoot devices, disable hardware devices. So as you can see, it's about your actual hardware components. This question is, well, about preventing people from deleting data accidentally. So it's got nothing to do with answer A there. Looking at answer B, File Explorer. Now, for those of you not familiar with this tool, it is actually something that most of you have been using all along. You just didn't know you were using it. That, guys, is what you use to browse your operating system. So the next time you go into your folders or your computer or any document really, you just basically go and explore your computer. Any place other than the desktop, you are actually in fact using what we call File Explorer. It is what allows you to browse the GUI interface on your computer to go between folders and what have you. That's File Explorer, guys. Now, using File Explorer, you can go and do a lot of things. I'm not sure if you guys have actually tried some of the settings, but on top in the menu bar, which is often hidden, you have to sometimes press the Alt key to see the hidden button, the hidden menu. If you go there, you'll find there's all kinds of settings. You can go and change, things to read only, to read write. You can go and hide files, which is the actual answer here. So in case you guys haven't made that conclusion yet, the answer here is B. It's File Explorer because File Explorer will allow you to go and hide a file. Actually make it invisible. Yep, hidden. So if you don't know, you can actually go right click on a folder or a file, and there's an option for you to go and make a file or a folder invisible. Now, if you do this on a folder, by default, any subfolders and subfiles will automatically get hidden as well. It's going to ask you, do you want to apply this to all the subfolders and files as well, or only the main parent folder? And normally you would have the choice. There's actually an option as well in File Explorer which will allow you to see hidden files and folders. By default, this is actually turned off. So any person, which is the general average user, they would not be able to see a file or a folder if you've made it hidden, because by default, this stuff is not visible. So if you want to see it, you would need to go into your File Explorer and say, View Hidden Files. It's an actual tick box you need to go and tick in your settings. So the answer is B, but let's go through C as well. So C is not a tool, it's a collection of tools. There is many ways you can go and access these tools, guys. Some of them you can find in your start menu. Some of them you can find by going to msconfig. There's a tab there, it says admin tools. Some of them can be found by opening MMC, which is Microsoft's management console. You can go and add some of these tools as snap-ins. There are so many ways you can go and access these tools. So it includes, but is not limited to, things like Device Manager, which is answer A. So answer A forms one of the many tools you'll find under admin tools. You'll also find things like defragment. You'll find things like the ability to go and manage your shared files and folders. You'll find maybe resource monitor, performance monitor, and much, much more. Now the last answer there, folks, answer D, mstsc.exe. Now, if you don't know what that does, because the name doesn't really tell us much, if you were to go open Start on your machine and you go to Run and you type that in, you'll see it's going to open Remote Desktop. Yep. I mean, looking at the name, I would never have guessed that's Remote Desktop, but I'm telling you, it's Remote Desktop, guys. So besides, browsing to it via the GUI, going to Start menu or just typing in Remote Desktop, that is actually what you can go and run to open Remote Desktop as well. So it's got nothing to do with this question. That's literally just a remote desktop, folks. Moving on to question 11. One of your technicians has spent hours trying to resolve a computer issue for the company's CEO. The CEO needs the device returned as soon as possible. It's typical from a CEO. Which of the following steps should your technician take next? All right, so we know we need to try and resolve this issue as quickly as possible because we're talking about the main cheese in the company here, guys. So looking at answer A, inform the CEO the repair will take a couple of weeks. Yo, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, they literally just said there in the question that this needs to be done as soon as possible. Now, informing the CEO of a company that this is going to take a couple of weeks, I don't know about you guys, but I would rather hand in my resignation. I would not go and give him that news because that just sounds like I'm asking for trouble. So far, I'm going to rule A out. B. Repeat the irritative processes. I mean, if you haven't resolved it the first time you did those processes, then what makes you think it's going to be different the second time you do that? So I don't think it's B. I mean, if there's nothing else, then I'll go for B, but I don't think it's B. C. Continue researching the issue. So far, that's the most plausible one. It's not, doesn't sound like a very good answer, but out of the three I've mentioned so far, that sounds like the most plausible one. The last one says escalate the ticket. Now that sounds like the best one here. So my first answer choice would be D, which is actually the answer here, folks. That would be followed by maybe C, if I really, really don't find joy with D. So if you really can't solve a problem in a company, if you have people higher than you in a higher tier, we call these tiers, then I would say escalate this to someone more senior that's got more experience. This person might even be a specialist with this particular problem for all we know. So you first try and resolve it. You might be tier 1 or tier 2. And if you can't resolve this issue, whatever it might be, you would then go and proceed to escalate this to a higher tier, which is more specialized, that, well, just generally has more experience. They know more what they're doing. Question 12. One of your users attempts to open some files, but a message appears stating that the files are encrypted. Uh-oh. The user was able to access these files before without receiving this message, and no changes have been made within the company. Which of the following has infected the computer? Yeah, as soon as they said the files are encrypted, I was already like, uh-oh, because I know what it is. I already knew what the answer was without even looking at the answers. So answer A, phishing. No, guys, phishing is when you are phishing or someone is phishing for something sensitive, something of value, a password, a username, a credit card number, an identification number. This is most commonly done via email. That's normally when we call it phishing. You would remember we had vishing as well, which was with a V. That's if someone does it over the phone. Phishing is generally done via email. So nowhere in this question do they mention someone is trying to get information via email. Nothing like that. So A is completely ruled out. B, ransomware. That, folks, is the answer. Ransomware is normally going to go and encrypt all or most of the files on someone's machine. So as soon as someone has ransomware, they would normally find that the names of the files might have been changed. Sometimes the names to the files would all be changed to the account number where the ransom has to be paid into. This is normally a Bitcoin account in most cases, a cryptocurrency account. You would find often the files icons would change as well. That's not set in stone, but I've seen most often the files icons would change. Most often the names of these files would change. Sometimes you might still be able to browse the PC, not that it's going to make any difference. Other times they don't even allow you to browse around on the PC. What the majority of these ransomwares have in common as well, which I don't see in this question, is there's normally going to be a prompt flashing on a screen or just constantly showing on a screen which tells you your files have been encrypted, and they will demand a ransom in the form of cryptocurrency. This normally has to be paid into the cryptocurrency account. The most common one is Bitcoin, from what I've seen. And they would normally give you an X amount of time to do this. This could be anything between 24 hours and 72 hours from my experience. I think 48 hours is probably the most common one I've seen. And if you don't pay the ransom within the given amount of time, they would normally go and delete all your data. At least that's what they threaten to go and do. So it's a very bad one. And as soon as you realize you've got ransomware or someone else has got ransomware, the very first thing you want to do is quarantine that machine. So if it's connected to a Wi-Fi or a network via cable, you want to immediately disconnect that thing from the Wi-Fi. You want to immediately yank out a network cable, cut it off if you have to. Generally, by then, it's actually already too late, but you never know. Maybe it's still actively busy spreading, and if that's the case, you want to try and mitigate as much damage as possible. After you've quarantined this machine, then you can go and proceed to the next steps. But the very first thing you want to do is quarantine the freaking machine. Looking at answer C, which is not the answer is B here, obviously. Spyware. Spyware is not really something specific, folks. That is a category. You get many things that falls under that. So that's a thing that you would find in the category of malware. So malware is a category which consists of lots of things, one of which is spyware. And spyware is a category that consists of a couple of sub things. one of which is a keylogger, which is also an answer here, and that's not the answer. So keyloggers, which is an example of spyware, would allow someone to record your keystrokes and, well, spy on you. Other forms of spyware you get, which I did actually mention earlier in this video at one of the previous questions, is someone can actually see what you're doing real time, kind of like a video stream, and you get a couple of other ones as well. So spyware, keyloggers, all the same, is used to spy on people in the hopes of, once again, seeing what they're up to or possibly getting something sensitive, something of value. Question 13. One of your users is unable to log into the domain with a desktop PC, but a laptop PC is working properly on the same network. You log into the desktop PC with a local account, but you're unable to browse to the secure intranet site to get troubleshooting tools. Which of the following is the most likely cause of the issue? All right, so one machine can log into the domain. That will be your laptop. The desktop PC, not so much. Doesn't want to work. However, that very same desktop PC that does not want to log into the domain, it is in fact able to log in locally onto that machine. So this is a domain joint machine. We've established that much. It's able to start. You can log into it, but only locally, just not using an account that's on the domain. Now, with that in mind, folks, looking at the four possible answers here, the first one says dual inline memory module failure. I can immediately rule that one out because if you had a memory module failure, this machine would not even start to begin with. You would not have the ability to even log on to that local account that they mentioned that we are able to log into. So we can rule A out because this machine wouldn't even have started then. B, application crash. Here it does not mention that we're trying to open an application. Nowhere do they say, hey, we're trying to open this application or that application that's not starting. They are saying that you're unable to log into the domain. There's no mention anywhere here in this question about any application. So this is not an application crash, folks. C, time drift. That is possible because if this machine is doing time drift, that would actually cause the machine to possibly not log into the domain. Now, for those of you that do not know what time drift is, there's a battery on a desktop PC's motherboard, and the same can be said for a laptop PC. And that's actually what allows your machine to keep track of what the time is, what the date is, what the year is, and all that. You would notice with a desktop machine, if you plug it out from a power source, and let's say you keep it out for about a day or a week or what have you, and you plug that sucker back in, somehow this machine is always able to know exactly what time it is. Why is that? It's because of the battery on the motherboard. This is called your CMOS battery. It's a coin cell battery. It's a very small flat battery, and it allows your machine not just to keep track of the date and the time and all that, but also to keep track of a whole bunch of settings on your machine, like the booting order, the BIOS password, and much, much more. Now, if the machine's time is not synchronized with a domain because of the battery now, obviously getting flat, it's not immediately going to just stop working. Don't get me wrong. Normally, when the battery starts getting flat, the clock on the PC would ever so slightly start falling behind and more behind and more behind. So if you go and correct the time today, you'll find maybe after a week it'll be 5 minutes behind. And then again, you go and correct the time again, and then after a week, it'll be maybe 7 minutes behind. So ever so slightly, it starts falling more and more behind to a point where it'll just completely start falling behind. So that's when the battery is now completely kaput. Looking at the answer D, file system errors. Now, guys, if there was a file system error, once again, you would not be able to log on to the local account. They specifically mention that we are in fact able to log on to the machine using the local account, just not the domain account. So if there was a file system error, that would stop you from logging in even on the local account. So the answer here, folks, is time drift. It's because this PC's clock is falling behind, and that's most likely due to the battery being flat on the motherboard. Question 14. You have been asked to resize the partition on the internal storage drive of a computer running Mac operating system. Which of the following tools should you use to accomplish this task? Now, unfortunately, some of you guys might not be so familiar with the Mac operating system. Fortunately for you guys, there's minimal questions about this in the exam. Most of your questions will be about the Windows operating system, which is, well, what most of us use. Maybe not all of us, but it's what most of us use. Now, if you don't know what A is, if we look at the four answers there, time machine. You might think this is like a system restore equivalent if you were to compare this to the Microsoft operating system. But the time machine, folks, is actually a backupping tool. That is used, or it's one of the tools you can go and use on the Mac operating system to go and do backups. Now, if you look at the question above, they said we want to resize the partition. Nowhere did they mention anything about doing backups or using backups, so we're going to rule A out. Looking at answer B, disk utility. That is basically the equivalent of the disk management tool if we were to compare this to the Windows operating system. Now, for those of you familiar with the Windows operating system, the disk management tool is what you would use to go and, well, partition your hard drive, resize your hard drive, and I think I just gave you the answer. The answer, yes, is B, since it's the equivalent of the same thing on Windows. So disk utility is what you would use to go and resize your partition. So that's the answer. But looking at answer C, file vault. What the cheese is that? So that is not something that protects your passwords, not so much in case you're wondering. That is actually kind of sort of equivalent to the BitLocker utility on Windows. So I'm comparing this a lot to Windows because most of us are using Windows, and since most of the course is about Windows, and since most of you guys already know Windows fairly well, it's just nice to do a comparison so that you can know what the heck we're talking about. So the file vault, if we have to compare it to something on the Windows side of the coin, it's basically equivalent to BitLocker. I wouldn't say it's exactly the same, but that's what you would use to go and encrypt a hard drive. Looking at answer D. Now this is a console you would use on the Apple operating system to go and check logs and do troubleshooting and that kinds of stuff. So once again, folks, answer is B. Question 15. You need to prepare a laptop running Windows 10 for a newly hired employee. Which of the following methods should you use to refresh the laptop? Now, looking at the question, folks, this sounds like a second-hand laptop. It's not a new laptop. It sounds like this laptop has been used before, probably by a previous employee. This previous employee might no longer be working for the company. Maybe they possibly got a promotion. Either way, that laptop is second-hand. Now, normally when we've got a second-hand laptop, before we go and give it away to someone outside the company, sell it, donate it, or even give it to a new employee, which is pretty much the situation we find ourselves in here, it's a good idea to go and clean that machine. You don't just go and willy-nilly hand it over to the new employee or the new owner. No. What if that machine contains sensitive information? Things that that new person should not see or that new owner should not see. And the same applies even if this person is someone that still works for the same company. So in this situation, that is pretty much what we find ourselves in. This new owner for this laptop does work for the same company. So you would think that it doesn't matter, but it does matter. Maybe there are things on that laptop, but that employee should still not see. So you should either go and completely remove the freaking hard drive, which is probably the best bet here, but it's also the most expensive option, or you want to go and, well, wipe it in some sort of way. Now, looking at the available answers we've got in front of us, folks, answer A, in-place upgrade. That is if you have an existing operating system on the machine, which seems to be the case. We seem to have Windows 10 installed on there, and you want to upgrade to a newer operating system, which will probably be something like Windows 11. So we don't mention anything here about upgrading to a newer operating system. We just want to clean the freaking machine so that they don't see things they're not supposed to. So we're going to rule A out. We're not trying to upgrade. B, repair installation. Guys, that is if your operating system is corrupt. So it's not the only thing we use that for, but generally if your machine is corrupt, the hard drive's corrupt, or the operating system files have become corrupt, and it's just not nice. The machine, as soon as you try and start, it's going to give you an error or something like that. It's going to try and recover. That is when you would go and do a repair installation. Now, we don't want to repair. They don't mention that there's anything wrong with this machine. There's nothing wrong with it. We just want to clean it. We don't want to fix it. We don't want to upgrade it. We want to freaking clean it. Looking at answer C, clean install. Yes. So clean install sounds like a very good answer so far. I'll have to check D first. But C sounds like a very good option because that normally involves wiping the hard drive, making it blank for the most part. And then you would go and install a new fresh copy of Windows, which is probably going to be Windows 10 again, maybe even Windows 11. And then ideally this new owner would not be able to see any of the previous files. So far the answer is C. Looking at answer D, full scan of antivirus. Nope, the answer is still C, guys. Nowhere in this question do they mention anything regarding any form of malware. There's nothing wrong with it. We simply just want to clean it. We do not want to upgrade. We do not want to repair. We do not want to go and fix any malware. We just want to clean it. So the only answer here, folks, is C, clean install. Question 16. One of your users reports that their PC seems to be running more slowly than usual. You check the system resources, but disk, CPU, and memory usage seems to be fine. It's all in order. You notice, though, that the GPU usage is extremely high. Which of the following types of malware is likely to blame? Now, first of all, guys, if you don't know what the GPU is, that's graphical processing unit. In other words, that's the processing chip on your graphics card. So I already know what the answer is. As soon as they said GPU usage is very high, and since they didn't mention anything about playing games and stuff here, I know what it is. So is the answer spyware? No, guys. Spyware is something you would use to go and spy on someone in the hopes of getting something sensitive or of value. Something we did mention previously in this video already. B. Crypto miner. Could it be that? Yes, that is the answer. Why? Because crypto mining is normally when a machine does hash algorithms and all that, and once it solves these hash algorithms, it gets rewarded with some sort of cryptocurrency. Most commonly this will be Bitcoin, but it's not limited to Bitcoin. It's basically called Bitcoin mining or cryptocurrency mining. I suppose depends on the currency we're talking about here. And what we use to do those complex calculations is actually not the CPU in most cases. There's no rule that says you can't use the CPU. Some people do that. The only times I've seen that happen is that normally if it's some sort of malware as well. Generally, we'll go and use the GPU, not the CPU. We're going to use the graphics card's processing unit because it's just generally so much more powerful. So ideally, if people want to go and do crypto coin mining or cryptocurrency mining, they would normally go and get themselves a very beefed up graphics card, possibly more than one. And they will go and run these graphics cards at pretty much maximum day and night. So you need to make sure you've got proper cooling. And eventually it'll start mining, or it'll end up mining some Bitcoin for you or whatever it is you're mining. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind, and this is unrelated to this question, is since these graphics cards are such high performance cards, and since they're running day and night, your power consumption is going to be off the charts, guys. This is not something you want to go and do at home. And keeping these things cool is a mission of note. So you need to make sure you've got proper cooling. And they don't normally last as long, these graphics cards, since you're constantly pushing them to their limit. They were not designed to be running at max like that the whole time. So if you ever go and check your machine or a client's machine and you see the resources looks a-okay, but for some reason their graphics card's running super high, but this person is not doing anything funky like playing games, yeah, guys, that's probably a sign of some sort of cryptocurrency miner happening in the background. So this machine's probably been infected with some sort of malware, and they're using this person's machine as a guinea pig of sorts, using that graphics card to go and do cryptocurrency mining. I mean, why am I going to go and use my own graphics cards when I can go and infect someone else's machine and have their graphics card burn itself out and do all my bidding? That's basically what it comes down to. So the answer is B. C, I think you guys should know what that is by now, since we did mention that a few times in this video. Keylogger is a subcategory in spyware. So spyware falls into the category of malware. So malware is not something specific, it's a category of things. One of which is spyware. If you look in spyware under that umbrella, you'll find a whole bunch of things, of which one is keylogger. It's just one of them. And believe it or not, even in keylogger, there's subcategories. You get different kinds of keyloggers, but that's not the topic here today. The last answer there is ransomware. We did discuss that one previously as well in this video. So that is normally when you or a user encounter some sort of malware which encrypts everything on the machine in exchange for some sort of ransom, which is normally in the form of, well, cryptocurrency. Question 17. One of your users is experiencing frequent malware symptoms on a Windows system. The user has tried several times to roll back the state, but the malware persists. Which of the following would most likely resolve this? So you'll notice the word most is again there in capital letters. It's not going to be pink in your exam. I'm just writing it in pink and capital letters just to draw your attention. I have noticed in the exam they might take a word like the word most and they'll make it in bold and they'll maybe make it a very dark black. I'm just making it pink to really draw your attention to it. Anyway, so normally when they do that, it means there's more than one possible answer here, and we want to know, or they want to know, if you know which one is the more correct one out of the lot here. Now, looking at the possible answers, is it A, encrypting the hard drive? No, encrypting the hard drive is going to secure the hard drive, but it's not going to get rid of the malware we have. So this person has got frequent malware. And every time they roll back, they seem to have the same freaking malware. So that does not seem to solve the problem. Rolling back would probably be something like system restore. It could be something else, but generally it refers to system restore if we look at something like A+. So the A+ course, they're probably referring to system restore. Using the rollback function, sometimes it gets rid of malware, other times not so much. It's about a 50-50. But it's a nice option to go and try because at the end of the day, it's minimal work and it's got massive reward. So encrypting the hard drive, nope. B, quarantining the system files. Now that is a good thing to go and do, but I would not say that is the most likely thing to resolve the issue. That is going to prevent this machine from infecting other machines on a network, but it's not going to fix this machine. We want to know how can we resolve the issue. So B is going to help with regards to preventing it from getting worse. I mean, yes, it'll help with that, but it's not going to resolve the issue at hand, which is to fix the freaking machine or to prevent it from getting infected again. Is the answer C, uninstalling applications one by one? No, guys. Uninstalling applications one by one is very drastic. And what if you uninstall all the applications and you realize that, oops, we still have the malware? What then? So that is a very unviable option to go and look at. So I'm going to rule that one out. The last one here is actually the answer, re-imaging the workstation. So that basically means we're going to go reload the operating system. We're going to go and wipe that machine, reinstall the operating system from scratch, which means it's completely squeaky clean. There's absolutely nada on it. Nothing. The re-imaging is normally something we'll do in a medium to large size company. It's not something you'll see us do often in a small company. There you'll probably go and install the Windows operating system via a disk or a flash drive. People don't really use disks anymore, so it's probably going to be a flash drive. But in a medium to large size company, you're most likely going to go and re-image the machine at hand via the network probably. And that is, well, how we do it. Question 18. You receive a call from a user who is unable to open Outlook. Now, Outlook is an email program, guys. The user states that Outlook worked fine yesterday, but the computer may have restarted sometime overnight. Which of the following is the most likely reason Outlook has stopped functioning? All right, so what do we know? We know it was working fine, and now the user suspects this machine has restarted during the night, and ever since this machine, well, now it's acting up. Outlook is just no longer working. So what could have happened during the night to cause this machine to restart and also to cause Outlook to no longer work? Is it the malware infection? I would say no. I mean, I'm not going to rule it out. It is possible, but generally with a malware infection, you're going to see the symptoms immediately. I wouldn't say that this machine is going to wait until the night and then restart itself and then only the next day stop working. No. Generally with a malware infection, as soon as you get it, you would know immediately. With B, mailbox full. Nope. Generally, if the mailbox is full, Outlook will give you a notification telling you your mailbox is full and that you need to go and delete a couple of mails. And that would not prevent it from opening. So even if the mailbox is full, never mind it telling you that the mailbox is full, Outlook would still, in fact, actually open up. It's going to open up. You might just not be able to receive mails until you go and delete a couple and free up some space, but it will open up. The user states here that it does not want to open up. So we're going to rule out A and we're going to rule out B. Is it C, low battery? Absolutely not. Even with a low battery, it would still open up. It might just open a little bit slower because it's probably going to be in battery saver mode, this laptop, but it would still open up. And then eventually when the battery dies, the PC would just die. And then you're probably going to have to go and reopen Outlook again once you get this PC back up and running and all that. But low battery does not cause you, or prevent you, should I say, from starting up any application. Depending on what application you start up, it might just drain your battery a little bit quicker. So if it's a very resource intensive application, your battery might just go flat a lot quicker. But it will not prevent you from starting up an application. So it's not C, folks. The last one we've got here, which is in fact the answer, D, an operating system update. Now it happens very often in companies where a machine would go and do an update, especially if this is a small company. If it's a medium to large size company, the machines normally only receive an update when we tell them to receive an update. We as the administrators are in charge or in control of these updates. I get to choose how people get updates, when they get these updates, and which updates they get. And before I even push it out to my users, I'm going to obviously go and test it for any potential issues. So it's very unlikely that that's going to be the issue in a medium to a large size company. Normally, updates tend to cause issues in small companies or in people's personal capacity. The machine was probably idling during the night, and this machine went and updated itself because there's nothing blocking it from updating itself. Then it's going to update from Windows straight, directly from Windows. Updated itself, at some point during the night, restarted, and as soon as it restarted, the update kicks in. And this update is now a culprit, which is causing Outlook to, well, not work so nice. Just because the updates are from Windows does not mean they're guaranteed to work, guys. Microsoft still encourages us to go and test these updates before we roll them out to our users, which is why you'll find that most companies will never just go and randomly deploy an update if there's a new one out. They'll always go and test it for an X amount of time with an X amount of users, and if they're happy with the results, then and only then would they actually go and deploy this to the production environment, which is basically the rest of the company. Anyway, the answer is D, guys. Question 19. You are at a call center that handles inquiries into billing issues for multiple medical facilities. You notice that call center agents often walk away from their workstations, leaving patient data visible for anyone to see. Which of the following should be done to best prevent data theft within the call center? All right, so what do we have here, boys and girls? We've got a data center. It handles billing issues, and the people that work here often just walk away from their stations, basically just leaving them open. And the screens are on. There's very important sensitive information just displaying on their screens, and that's, as you can imagine, bad. So if anyone just happens to walk past that person's desk now, because they're not sitting there and all that, they will be able to go and sit down or possibly just peek at the screen and they'll be able to see, well, sensitive information. So how do we best prevent that? Is it A, install privacy screens? Now, it's not a bad answer, but the funny thing is usually at these centers, they already have privacy screens. So you get different kinds of privacy screens, guys. So if you don't know what that is, you'll find in some places they've got these little cubicles. It's not a very big cubicle, but they would be sharing desks, and between people's desks, they would have these little dividers, these little walls. They could be little cardboard, they could be made out of wood, they could be made out of plywood, all kinds of cheap materials. The point is it's a divider between one person and another, so the one person can see on the other person's desk, or more importantly, see on the other person's screen. That is one example of a privacy screen. You get many. Now, in this case, that's the kind of privacy screen they're referring to, since I've got a bit of a lay of the land here. It's not a bad answer, so I'm going to say, okay, that's up for debate, answer A. B. Log of the users when their workstations are not in use. Also, not a bad answer, but the issue I've got with B is you would have to do that manually, or some administrator or someone is going to have to do this manually. So there's multiple ways you can go about that. You can either go and physically walk up to the machine and literally just go and say, okay, well, let's log off this machine. But if users are going to be doing that for one another, they're still possibly going to be seeing stuff they're not supposed to. And if you're going to be doing it, are you really going to go walk up and down the whole day to go and log people off? No, I don't think so. Now, you could go and do this remotely, but then that begs the question, how are you going to know who is not at their desk? You're not going to know. So the only way you would know is to once again walk up to their machines, and then you'll see, oh, shucks, this guy's not at their desk. Let me log them off. And then you're going to end up doing it manually, physically, in person anyway. So I'm going to rule B out. It's not a bad option, but it's just, no, it doesn't seem viable. C says lock workstations after 5 minutes of inactivity. That doesn't sound too shabby, guys. So that is a very quick and easy setting you can go and configure. It doesn't cost you anything. It's literally built in. And what's going to happen is, if that machine is inactive for 5 minutes, it'll automatically go back to the logon screen where it basically asks the person for a password. So if someone walks away now to go to the restroom, they go get themselves a snack or a coffee or what have you, doesn't really matter. If they stay away for more than 5 minutes, this machine is going to lock itself automatically. So far, that actually sounds better than A, even in my opinion. Looking at D, encrypt the workstation hard drives. Now that is going to give you security, but it's not going to solve the issue we've got at hand here. So encryption, guys, only works if the machine is locked or if the machine is off. Now, the question specifically mentions these people leave their machine without freaking logging out. So if the machine is already logged in, it's going to already be unencrypted. So anyone can actually just go and sit down there and, well, just go and copy whatever they want or just go and access whatever they want. So D is completely out. I'm going to rule out B as well, and I'm going to rule out A. The answer here, folks, is C. The second best answer will probably be A. But the problem with A is if one of those persons happens to stand up or anything like that, they will still be able to see on the screen. Or if they're sitting right next to this person, which is now missing, they'll probably be able to hear when this person stands up and walks away, and they can just literally go and peek over on that person's screen, and then you sort of the same conundrum. So the answer here is C. Question 20. A police officer often leaves a workstation for several minutes at a time. Which of the following is the best way the officer can secure the workstation quickly when walking away? So it's a very similar issue as the previous question, but not quite exactly the same issue. So what they've got in common is it's a workstation that we do not want to leave unattended, which is not supposed to just be idling there unlocked. So if the machine is on idle and there's nobody there, we want this machine to ask for a password, or it should just be turned off for that matter. So in this question, at least, question 20, the police officer wants to make sure this machine actually is secure, where the previous one, at question 19, the guys was just not giving a toot about this. So what can we use? What's the best way the officer can go and secure the machine? Is it answer A? Use a key combination to lock the computer when leaving. So far, that sounds like a very good answer. That actually might very well be the answer. The key combination they're referring to, guys, is if you go and press the Windows key and L on the keyboard. For those of you that don't know what the Windows key is, that's the one that's got the little flag icon. It's normally between your Control key and your Alt key. So if you're using a laptop, you might only have one of these. It'll probably be at the bottom left between your Control and your Alt. It's got a little flag icon on it. If you're using a desktop keyboard, you might even have two of these. So if you press that down and at the same time press the L key, that would lock the PC. It's going to take you back or the user back to the logon screen. Now, in case you're curious about anything that might still potentially be open on the machine, don't worry, it's still open. You would not have accidentally closed anything. It simply locks the machine, takes you back to the logon screen, and the user who this machine belongs to, he or she would have to go and type in the password first again when they get back. And as soon as they log back in, everything they had open would still be open. Question 21. A homeowner recently moved and requires a new router for the new ISP to function correctly. The internet service has been installed and has been confirmed as functional. Which of the following is the first step the homeowner should take after installation of all relevant cabling and hardware? Is it A, test all network sharing and printing functionality? Well, it's not a bad answer, but I would first want to see the other ones. Is it B, change the default passwords on new network devices? Okay, so guys, that currently is better than A. Generally, when you install anything new that's network equipment like a router, a switch, a firewall, an access point, anything like that, one of the first things you do is you change the default password, because anyone and everyone knows what that password is. Normally the password is blank or it's the word admin. The username is also usually the word admin. So since I know that, now you guys know that, if the average Joe keeps their stuff on the default password, people like us can go and log in. So it's literally common knowledge. So generally you want to go and change that default password. If you really want to, you can also go and change the default username. Not as important. It's more important to go and change that default password, folks. So currently B is the answer here. C, run a speed test to ensure the advertised speeds are met. That is something you would want to go and do, but I'm not going to prioritize that over B. B is still the more important one here. D, convert the PC from a DHCP assignment to a static IP address. That's got nothing to do with the question, guys. So basically D says you are on a dynamic IP address and you want to convert this to a fixed/static IP address. That's not normally something we'll go and do. Generally, most machines and most networks are on dynamic, even if this is a home environment, which is what the situation is about. So home environments, generally your machine would be on dynamic, which means it's going to get its IP address from the DHCP. Now, since you don't have an actual DHCP server at home, you're going to acquire it from your router. In this case, that new router. It's turned on by default. So I don't think the answer is D. That is something it's very, very, very unlikely for you to go and do. It's going to be B, and that can be followed by A or C. But the answer here, folks, is B. Question 22. You have a department that has the following technical requirements. So there's a bunch of requirements for you guys. So it's a quad-core processor, 250 gig hard drive space, and 6 gigs of RAM. The company plans to upgrade from a 32-bit Windows operating system to a 64-bit operating system. Which of the following will the company be able to fully take advantage of after the upgrade? Now, guys, this one is going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to have to dive straight into the answer. If you look at a 32-bit operating system, for those of you that don't know, it's got a few restrictions. It's an old way of doing things. I suppose you could call that legacy. And 32-bit operating systems, one of the restrictions they have is on RAM. It does not allow you to have more than 4 gigs of RAM. You can go check the manual. You can go and Google this if you want to. A 32-bit operating system has a 4 gig RAM limit. So you can go and install 6 gigs, 8 gigs, 16 gigs, or even more than that, but you'll find that only 4 gigs of that RAM is actually usable by the operating system. The rest of it is just going to be, well, wasted, basically, for that matter. So in this case, the machine is going to have 6 gigs of RAM, and if you're running a 32-bit operating system, you'd only be able to use 4 gigs of that 6 gigs. The last 2 gigs is being wasted down the drain. So if you're going to be switching to a 64-bit operating system, you will in fact be able to use the full 6 gigs to yourself. So looking at the answer or the question here again, it says, which of the following will the company be able to fully take advantage of after the upgrade? What's the answer? RAM, folks. Question 23. You have a company that needs to securely dispose of data stored on optical disks. Which of the following is the most effective method to accomplish this task? There we go again of the word most being capital and bolds there and all that. So that means there's more than one way to get the job done here. We want to know if you know which one out of these 4 are the best. So looking at answer A, recycling. Now that could mean a lot. It's a bit vague, so I think let's first look at the other answers. I don't think it's recycling because recycling doesn't really tell us what they mean by that. So I'm going to rule A out. B, deguzzing. Now that's not a bad option, guys. That actually is one of the things we use to go and dispose of data on hard drives. So if you want to go destroy hard drives or get rid of data on hard drives, there's a couple of things we go and do. One of them is deguzzing. If you don't know what that is, it basically is like bringing a magnet near your hard drive, which corrupts the data on the hard drive. It's never 100% effective. It's like 98, 99% effective. But there's always a chance like 1% or less of the data might still be intact. And for all we know, that 1% might be very freaking sensitive. So currently B is the best answer here, but it might not be the best one out of all 4 of them once I look at them all. Answer C says low level formatting. Now that's actually worse than B. So far B is still the best answer here. Formatting does kind of erase the hard drive, but if you've got the right software and you know how to, you can recover all the data that was on that hard drive. I would know because I do that for a living. D, shredding. Shredding is the new best answer here. So the best answer here, folks, is D, and that will be followed shortly after by B, deguzzing. Shredding is when we use industrial shredders. These are like metal shredders that rips the hard drive physically to bits and pieces, little chunks. There's absolutely no way you can recover from that. Whereas deguzzing is like holding a magnet to the hard drive. It's going to go and corrupt all the data on the hard drive, and there's a chance that 1% or less of the data might still actually be intact. Where shredding it and ripping it to bits and pieces, that's fully effective. Now, in case you're curious what the other methods are, so we've got deguzzing, we've got shredding, which is on our list in front of us. You've also got drilling, so you can take an industrial drill and drill holes into that hard drive. And another one that's very popular, which you'll find in the course, is incineration, which means we actually melt the hard drive down to molten metal. So I would say the top 2 ones is probably shredding and incineration, followed by drilling a hole through it, and then the last one in this list of options is probably going to be deguzzing. Question 24. You have a user that has a blue screen of death that appears on their workstation monitor. The user immediately presses the power button to shut down the PC, hoping to repair the issue. The user then restarts the PC and the blue screen of death reappears. So the user contacts you now. Which of the following should you use to determine the cause? Alright, so this person, guys, is experiencing what is known as a BSOD. That is short for blue screen of death. So for those of you that have never seen it, as soon as you start a machine or while you're running the machine, the computer would just crash basically. All you would see is a blue screen. It's got a bit of an error code on it, and this literally flashes on the screen for like a fraction of a second. It is so quick that you cannot even take a photo of it normally. It is so quick. It's literally like a fraction of a second. And then you can't even read what the error was. You can't write down the code for the error. You can't take a photo of the error. It is just freaking annoying. So now you get this error and you've got no idea why you got the freaking error. It's just plain annoying. So which of the following should you use to determine the cause of this blue screen of death? Is it services? No, guys. Services, if you were to go in there, it'll show you which services are currently running on a machine, which ones are not. You'll have the ability to go and start them, stop them, disable them, enable them, that kinds of stuff. So that is unrelated to the question. And even if that was the answer, how do you plan on going into services if this machine does not want to start? To be able to go in there, you need to be able to start this machine, don't you think? So it's not A. B. Event viewer. Now, event viewer is a very good answer. Event viewer, if you were to go in there, it'll show you all kinds of errors, including blue screens of death. You'll be able to go in there. You can go check what the error was. You can go write it down. You can go and do research. But this question mentions as soon as they go and try and restart the machine, it immediately gets another blue screen of death. So that kind of rules out event viewer, actually, sadly. So event viewer is generally a very good way to go and solve this problem. That's actually something I use all the time for blue screens of death. I would go in there, I can take my time with a nice cup of coffee, read the error slowly, and if it's just a code, I would copy it to Google, and then very quickly, within a matter of minutes, I'll know what caused the issue. But now, once again, since I can't start a freaking machine without getting another blue screen of death, how do you think you are going to get into Event Viewer? Problem, wouldn't you say? Looking at answer C, system configuration. Once again, that is something you can only access if the machine is actually able to start. And even if you are able to get into that, that is going to just display information about your machine. So that is not the answer. It's not A, it's not B, although B is a close one. It's not C. The answer is D, stop code. Stop code is the error code. Now, in my opinion, that's not the best answer, but it's the only answer we've got here. So the stop code is the actual error displaying on a screen. So when that blue screen flashes on the screen, it's like for a fraction of a second, you need to somehow magically get a hold of that freaking code. Take a photo of it, maybe record your screen. So that might actually be a good option. Maybe take a video camera, record the screen, knowing you're going to get this error, and then you go and play it back, and you play it in slow motion until you get to the blue screen, and you just pause it, and then you go and check what is the error code, and then you can go type it into Google or so. So that might be one of your best options here. So the answer here, folks, is stop code. It's also known as an error code. It's known as a memory dump. It's known as a blue screen of death. It's got so many names. Moving on. Question 25. You are troubleshooting boot times for a user. You attempt to use msconfig to see which programs are starting with the operating system, but receive a message that it can no longer be used to view the startup items. Which of the following programs can you use to view the startup items? Alright guys, so let me basically summarize what's happening here. Up until Windows 7, if you were to go and open msconfig, and you can do this by going to start, and you go to run, and you go type in msconfig.msc or msconfig.exe, if you go type that in there, it's going to give you a small little window which just looks exactly the same from XP all the way to Windows 11. It's got a bunch of tabs. One of these tabs is called Startup Items. And up until Windows 7, if you click on the Startup Items tab, you would see all the programs and nonsense that starts up with the machine. And if there's something starting up with the machine that you don't want to start up, you can actually go and turn it off, which will increase your boot times and all things like that. Now, any operating system after Windows 7, so that would be Windows 8, Windows 8.1, Windows 10, Windows 11. With all of those, if you go into msconfig, the startup tab is still there, but it's blank. I think there's like a little link you can go and click on, which will take you to the new location, which is Task Manager. So now, if you want to go and access the startup items on your machine, you can still do that, but you've got to go to Task Manager. There's a tab in Task Manager that says Startup Items. That is where they've moved it to. And looking at the question again, it says, which of the following programs can you use to view startup items? So this is probably an operating system that's Windows 8 or older. So it's Windows 8, 8.1, 10, or 11. The fact that they can't see it there. So which of the ones below will allow me to go to Task Manager and view the startup tab? I think you guys can probably already see the answer. It's B. So A, MS Info 32 is going to display system information. It's going to show your machine's operating system, the build, the RAM, the CPU, all kinds of cool information. B is how you open Task Manager. C is to open Performance Monitor. And D is to open your registry editor to allow you to go and edit your registry. So the answer here, folks, is B. Question 26. You are setting up a conference room computer with a script that boots the application on login. Which of the following would you use to accomplish this task? All right, so we're setting up a conference room computer. It's got a script. It needs to boot an application as soon as the PC logs in. Now, how do we achieve that? How do we get this application to, well, boot as soon as the computer logs in? Is it A? And keep in mind, we've got to choose two answers here. You can see it says choose two. File Explorer. Nope. File Explorer is what you use to browse your PC, to go into your folders and documents and stuff. That is not something we would use to go and cause something to boot at login. Is it B? System information. That is something you would access to go and see your build and all that. So that will be MS Info 32, for example. It's just to see information, not to make something happen. Is it C? Task Scheduler. Yes, that's one of the answers, folks. Task Scheduler is a built-in tool on both the client operating systems as well as server operating systems. You can use this to schedule freaking anything to happen. You can schedule a message to display. You can schedule something to get created, deleted, edited, or for something to start up, like a script. And personally, I would actually say Task Scheduler should be enough to get the job done, because Task Scheduler is not just the right tool. You can use this bad boy to actually start up any script. This can be a batch file, PowerShell script. Task Scheduler on its own is actually enough to get the job done. But we need to choose two answers. Answer D, Device Manager. Nope. Device Manager shows you all the installed hardware. It just shows you whether they've got drivers, is it the correct driver. You can go and enable or disable these devices. You can go and update their drivers, roll back their drivers, that kinds of stuff. Nowhere in this question do we talk about hardware that needs to be installed, uninstalled, or any drivers for that matter. So it's not D. E, Startup folder. Yep, that's your second answer, guys. The startup folder is a section on your computer where you would go and dump stuff that needs to start up with your computer. Now, you don't really need to go and dump it there. With Task Scheduler, if you've got a script you would like to start up, you can actually go to Task Scheduler and you can browse to that script wherever it might be. You do not need to put it in the startup folder. There's no rule that says you have to. You could literally dump this script on your desktop of your desktop PC or your laptop. You can dump it anywhere, your documents, your desktop. And with Task Scheduler, you just browse to the script in question, you choose it, and ta-da! But startup folder is normally where we would go and dump something. So if there's a script you would like to start up, it's more of a courtesy to go and just drop it in that folder to keep stuff organized. But I would not say it's a rule to go and drop it there. F is obviously not the answer, since we know the answer is C and E here, folks. So programs and features is normally where you would go to install programs or uninstall programs. Most of us only go in there to go and uninstall programs. We can go and turn features on and off as well, but normally we only go there to go and turn features on. And you can also go and, if you know how to go and use it, you can also go and view what updates have been installed. And you can go and uninstall updates for Windows. So once again, the answer is C and E, folks. Question 27. A neighbor successfully connected to one of your users' Wi-Fi network. Which of the following should the user do after changing the network configuration to prevent this neighbor from being able to connect again? So what's the first thing your user should do to keep that pesky neighbor off their Wi-Fi? Is it A, disable encryption settings? No, that's going to make matters worse, guys. You'll find that most Wi-Fi connections will be using WEP, WPA, WPA2 or WPA3. WPA2 being the most common one. That's actually one of the more secure ones. Now, if you're going to go and disable that, you're actually reducing the security, not improving it. You're going to make it even easier for the neighbor to get on there. So it's not A. Is it B? Disable SSID broadcast. So that means the name of your wireless network is not going to be broadcasted. So if my wireless network is called Funky Town, if anyone now goes and searches for my wireless connection, they will not be able to see it. It's just gone. It's missing. It's still there. It's still active. But if they run a search for it, they won't be able to find it. So unless you give them the name, or unless they know what the name is, they will not be able to find it. They will not be able to go and connect to it. So disabling the SSID broadcast is actually so far a very good answer. So far that's the answer. C, disable logging. No, that's bad. Logging means you're going to be able to keep track of who logged into your network and who did not, if we're coming at this from a Wi-Fi perspective. So disabling logging means you'll have even less security, because if and when they get in, you won't know, because you won't be able to see it in the history. D, disable MAC filtering. That's also reducing security. So A, C, and D is not the answer. All three of them would be reducing your security. Enabling MAC filtering would actually be a very good answer, but that's not an answer here. They said disable MAC filtering. That's what D says. But if D said enable MAC filtering, that actually might have very well have been the answer. So every device has a MAC address. It's an unchangeable address. And if you had MAC filtering enabled on that Wi-Fi of yours, or the user had it enabled, they can go and add their own wireless devices onto that MAC filter. And if anyone else tries to connect any other device to that Wi-Fi connection, it would not work, because that device's MAC address would not be in the filter. But that's not an answer. So the only one that we've got to choose here, folks, is B, to make the network invisible. Question 28. You are troubleshooting an issue with a computer that contains sensitive information. You determine that the computer needs to be taken off-site for repair. Which of the following should you do next? Okay, so is it answer A, delete sensitive information before the computer leaves the building? Are you freaking crazy? So the computer has an issue that needs to be solved, but we don't want to delete all the sensitive information on there, because that will put the user in a worse predicament than what they were to begin with. That's going to make matters even worse. So yes, I might be able to solve the issue then, but that's going to make matters worse. So we're not going to do A. That's just crazy. B, check corporate policies. That's not a bad answer. There might be some sort of policy in place that says thou shall not do this, thou shall not do that. Maybe you're not allowed to take this PC off-site, although checking corporate policies, it's quite difficult to get a hold of those sometimes. So I'm going to leave the answer at B for now. Let's look at C. C says get authorization from the manager. Okay, so far that's the new best answer. So far it's C followed by B. So if you want to go and take a computer off-site, you can always go and ask the manager, which is basically going to overrule these policies in some situations. Go and ask the manager at that site, hey sir or ma'am, would you mind if I take this PC off-site? I cannot repair it here. I don't have the tools, or I don't have enough time, or whatever the situation might be. Explain it to them in simple terms, and you ask permission, and normally if they say it's okay, then it's okay. Answer D, remove the hard drive and then send the computer for repair. No, because I need that hard drive to be in the PC so that I can start the PC to replicate the issue, and also so I can start the PC afterwards to see if the issue is still there. So once I fix this PC, I need to know, is the issue still there? So I need the PC to run with its hard drive so I can go and troubleshoot the issue. So D is completely out. A is completely out. The answer is C, and then B is not very far behind. So the answer here, folks, is C. Question 29. A user contacts you about an issue with their laptop. The user states that the applications open without being launched and that their browser redirects when trying to go to certain websites. Which of the following is the most likely cause of the user's issue? Alright, so this user is trying to start the browser, or they're trying to go to websites, and every time they try and do that, it just redirects them to certain websites. That's not so nice. Now, it's not a keylogger, because a keylogger is just going to go and track what they're doing. It's going to record the keystrokes, it's going to check what they're doing, it just spies on them, but it does not redirect you to certain sites. It could be B, which is malware. Malware could be a lot of things. Malware is a category. Malware includes keyloggers. It includes viruses, which is answer C there. It includes ransomware, adware, and you name it. It includes all of them. So malware is a very wide net I'm throwing. So far, the answer could potentially be B. I think it's B. C, is it a virus? Well, that would be the same as saying B, because B includes viruses as well, since malware includes viruses. Is the answer D? Crypto miners? No, I would say no, because nowhere in the question do they mention that the CPU is running very high, or the GPU, more importantly, is running very high. So I'm going to rule out D, I'm going to rule out A, and so it's going to be between B and C, and since B is the bigger net that's being cast here, I'm going to say the answer is B, and it actually is B, folks. Question 30. You are finalizing a new workstation for a user. The user's PC will be connected to the internet, but will not require the same private IP address each time. Which of the following protocols will you most likely utilize? Alright, so this person is going to have a different private IP address every time they try and connect to the internet. What does that sound like? That sounds like DHCP, guys. The answer here is DHCP. If you don't know what that is a role you would normally install on a server on premises. It's a server, and it would normally dish out IP addresses or to devices. This could be to laptops, desktops, computers, tablets, phones, you name it. So every time that device connects to your network, it gets an IP address from the DHCP, which is normally a private IP address. And using that IP address, you can go and access resources on the network, including other devices, and you can also go and access the internet. DNS is also a role you would install on a server that converts IPs to names, names to IPs in a nutshell. It's not the only thing it does, but it will allow you to load web pages. C, RDP, is remote desktop protocol, so that's to connect remotely from one machine to another. And D is SMTP, which is for sending email. It's an old protocol we use for sending email. Now, obviously the answer here is A, guys, but just to add on to that, DHCP is not necessarily just installed as a role on a server. So if you go look at home environments, small office environments, they don't have servers. So how the heck do those guys have DHCP? It's built into pretty much all routers, and it's normally turned on by default. Now, should you have a medium to a large size company, you're probably still going to have a router, but in those situations, you would go and turn off the DHCP functionality on the router, and you would go and add it as a role on the server, which gives you way more functionality. Question 31. You are preparing to remediate a Trojan horse that was found on a workstation. Which of the following steps should you complete before removing the Trojan horse? Alright, so what should we do before removing a Trojan horse? So a Trojan horse is normally some sort of malware that's pretending to be something that it's not, while it's silently killing your PC in the background, basically. Is it A, schedule a malware scan? Now, that is something we want to do during a Trojan horse, but that's not necessarily the first thing we would want to go and do. So let's first have a look at the other answers and then we'll decide. B, educate the user. That is also something you would like to do during a Trojan horse infection, but that's probably going to be the last thing you do. So once you've remediated this horse fiasco and you've resolved it and you've given the machine back to the user, then you would educate the user. So that's probably going to be like the last step besides documenting everything you've done. So I'm going to rule out B for now. C, disable system restore. So far that's better than A, because one of the first things we do, never mind quarantining the machine, is to disable system restore and to disable any form of backups. Now, having system restore and backups is a very good thing. That should always be on. But as soon as you notice that you've got an infection, one of the first things you do besides quarantining the machine is to disable any form of backups. This is to prevent your backups from getting compromised, because at the moment you might still be able to go and use them. But if you're going to leave the backups on, including system restore, it's going to possibly back up the Trojan horse, which is going to compromise your system restore points. And then going forward, if you want to go and use the system restore points to remediate the system, they might also be compromised. They might actually be putting back the Trojan horse, which is not something we want. So far the answer is C, folks. D, run Windows Update. No. That is also something you want to go and do, but that's not going to be the first thing you want to do. So if I look at the possible answers in front of us, I would say the first one would probably be to go and quarantine the system, which is not in front of us. That will be followed by disabling your system restore. And then I would have gone with A, schedule a malware scan to get that sucker off. D, to go and update the system, so that there's any security vulnerabilities in the system. It could be that maybe this Trojan horse got onto the system because there was a weakness in the operating system. Maybe it did not get the latest patches or updates somewhere along the line, and that could have been the reason why it got this Trojan horse in the first place. And then the last one would be B, educate the user. So first C, then A, then D, then B. That's the order I would have chosen the answers in. Question 32. Which of the following would most likely be deployed to enhance physical security for a building? And you'll notice we have to choose two. So we've got to choose two things here. It needs to enhance security, but it's specifically physical security. Keep that in mind, folks. Physical security. Looking at answer A, that is multi-factor authentication. It is indeed security. It does indeed enhance security, but it's not necessarily physical security. Multi-factor authentication is where you or the user has to prove in more than one way that you or they are who they claim to be. Now, this could be a password and a PIN, and it could be a geographic lock, maybe somewhere you are. You've got to be in a certain location as well. Now, if this was, for example, a biometric authentication, then that could technically be physical security. So multi-factor could be biometric. It could possibly also be something that you've got physically on your person. Could be. Does not mean it will be. Multi-factor authentication, folks, it can be a lot of things. So it could be something you know, something you have, something you are. It could be somewhere you are, and quite a few other things as well. So what if multi-factor authentication is something you know and somewhere you are? That's not really physical now, is it? So I'm going to rule out A. Is it B, a badge reader? Yes, that is something physical. A badge is something physical, and the badge reader itself would be something physical. So far, B is a physical answer, so that's a correct answer here. C, personal identification number. That's not necessarily something physical, folks. So I'm going to rule out C. D, firewall. Not necessarily. So you get two kinds of firewalls. You get a software kind that you can go and install on your desktop, laptop, or server. That's completely digital. And you get an actual physical firewall that you'll probably end up putting in your server room. But the work it does is once again digital. So it's not really physical security. The device might be physical. It might be, it might not be. But even if it is a physical device, the work it's going to do, the security it's going to provide is still going to be digital security, not physical security. So it's not D. So that leaves us with only E. So that's going to be the answer, even though we don't even know what that is yet. So E is a motion sensor. Folks, a motion sensor is something we do physically. So motion sensors, you can put them outside your building, inside your building, and you might even find these at gates. So if a gate opens automatically or with a remote, you'll find often gates will have some sort of motion sensor there. So that if a vehicle is in the gate will not close because it senses there's something, well, in the gate, a vehicle. Otherwise, the gate's going to close and the gate's going to damage someone's vehicle. So you get many kinds of motion sensors. They're used for many kinds of purposes, but it is something physical. So the two answers we're looking for here, which are physical, is B and E. Question 53. One of your users receives a call from someone who claims to be from their bank. Now, doesn't that sound familiar? Didn't we have a question like this earlier? Something similar. So it's very similar to a question we had earlier. I don't remember what question number it was, but it's similar. The answer choices might just be a bit different. So the person now, pretending to be from the bank, they request information to ensure the user's account is safe. Yeah, sounds fake to me. Which of the following social engineering attacks is your user experiencing? Is it whaling? Guys, what is whaling? Now, that's something I have not mentioned yet in this video. It has not been a possible answer yet as far as I know. Whaling is when the perpetrator, let's imagine for a moment I am the attacker. I'm the person after your information. Whaling is when I want a specific high individual's information. I'm targeting a whale, if that makes sense. I'm targeting the CEO, or I'm targeting the main administrator. So that's whaling. I'm going after a very big individual, a high individual's credentials. So this could be maybe a celebrity. It could be, a very high up person in a company. It's a big fat target, which is why we call it whaling. So nowhere in this question do they mention they're going after a celebrity or a very high individual. It just says they called a user and they're pretending to be from the bank. That's it. So it's not A. B. Smishing. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. A lot of these words I can't pronounce because I'm not English. So smishing, assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly, is when they send you a text message. This could be something like an SMS, a WhatsApp, that kinds of stuff, pretending to be your bank. It's normally in the form of a text message. So they don't mention a text message, they mention a phone call. So it's not smishing since the user did not receive a text message from their bank. Is it C, phishing? Phishing is generally via email, which is technically text, but it's more commonly to be email. So they don't mention the user receiving an email from their bank, they mention the user receiving a phone call. So we're also going to rule out answer C. So it's not A, it's not B, it's not C. So it's not A because they're not going after a very high individual. It's not B because it's not a text message. It's not C because it's not an email. So that leaves us with D. The answer is D, and we don't even know what D is yet. D, I don't even know how to pronounce that. I think it's called phishing. That is if someone receives a voice call, which is what the V is there for. It means voice. V stands for voice. So they receive a voice call from someone pretending to be some entity like the bank. So the answer here, folks, is D. Question 54. One of your clients has a kiosk, which is running Windows 10. It relies exclusively on a numeric keypad to allow customers to enter their ticket numbers, but no other information. Alright, so there's a kiosk. They only have a numeric keypad, which means they can only type from 0 to 9. And at most, they might be lucky enough to be able to type the star key and the pound key. So they can't type any letters, anything of the alphabet. They don't have a keyboard, it's just a numeric keypad. Anyway, so the question further reads, if the kiosk is idle for 4 hours, the login screen locks. So it's got a timeout lock, basically. Which of the following sign-on options would allow any employee the ability to unlock the kiosk? Alright, so let's have a look. Answer A, requiring employees to enter their username and passwords. Nope, that's not going to work, guys, because remember, they have just a numeric keypad, which means they can only type from 0 to 9. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And if they're really lucky, they might be able to type the star key and the pound key. So how do you think they're going to type in their username? And God forbid, if they have a password that doesn't contain a number, that's going to be a problem. So A is physically not possible. B, requiring employees to use their fingerprints. Nope, not going to work. I mean, that's very secure, but they said the kiosk exclusively only has a numeric keypad. So a fingerprint is not going to work because they don't have a fingerprint reader. They said they only have a numeric keypad. So B is completely impossible. C, using a PIN and providing it to employees. So far, that's possible because a PIN is normally, well, numbers, isn't it? It's normally a 4-digit number, but it could probably be shorter, it could be longer. That is a PIN. So far, C is possible. Looking at answer D, setting up facial recognition for each employee. That's the same as B. Both of them are biometric. They said this kiosk only has a keypad for numbers. So how do you expect to take fingerprints? How do you expect to go and do facial recognition if you don't have a camera for that? They said it only has a numeric keypad. So D is physically impossible again. So A, B, and D is not possible. Specifically because this thing only accepts numbers. The only answer here that's going to work with that numeric keypad is C, giving them a PIN number. Question 55. One of your fellow technicians installed Windows 10 on a workstation. The workstation has 3.5 gigabits of usable RAM, even though the technician installed 8 gigabits of RAM. Which of the following is the most likely reason this system is not utilizing all the available RAM? Now, if you guys paid attention earlier in this video, you might actually already know the answer because I kind of did explain this earlier in a different question. The question was phrased differently. The answer choices we had was different. But if you paid attention, you would know what the answer is right now. And you would know why that is the answer. So looking at answer A, the system's memory is failing. No, guys, if the system's memory would fail, you would be experiencing a blue screen of death. It's going to flash for like a fraction of a second. You're going to see a blue screen of death. And yeah, the system would basically crash. So that's what you would experience if the system's memory is failing. So it's not A. Is it B? The system is utilizing a 32-bit operating system. That is very plausible, and I think that is the answer because of what I said earlier in this video. A 32-bit operating system is limited to 4 gigs of RAM, folks. And if you would like to use more than 4 gigs of RAM, you've got to have a 64-bit operating system. Now you might wonder, okay, why do they say 3.5 gigs of RAM and not 4 gigs of RAM if this guy's got 8 gigs of RAM installed? It's often because the system is using some of that RAM for itself for other purposes. And that's why it's going to show you've got 3.5 usable RAM. It's sometimes 3.3 gigs of usable, sometimes 3.5 gigs of usable. If you're really lucky, it might say 4 gigs, but normally it's about 3.3 to about 3.5 gigs that's actually usable. We just rounded off to 4 gigs of RAM. So the answer here is actually B, in case you're wondering. Answer C says the system is missing updates. Folks, if the system is missing updates, you'll have all kinds of other issues, but it's not going to be a RAM issue. Not like that. D. The system requires a restart. Never in my life have I heard of a system needing to restart because it's not picking up all the RAM. That's not something you would experience. So normally if you want to put in more RAM, you would have to turn the system off. You plug in the new RAM, assuming it's accepted and it supports it. As soon as you start that machine back up again, it should detect all the RAM, assuming this machine supports that RAM and assuming it's a 64-bit operating system. So the answer stays B. Question 56. You are staying at a hotel, and while doing so, you attempt to connect to the hotel's Wi-Fi, but notice that there are multiple SSIDs which have very similar names. Which of the following social engineering attacks is being attempted? Now, if you don't remember what an SSID is, folks, that is the name of the Wi-Fis. So at this hotel, if you go onto your laptop, your phone, your tablet, and you go and search for possible hotspots or possible Wi-Fi's to go and connect to, that is the SSIDs. Now, when you're searching for these wireless networks, you'll notice their names are very much the same. Some of them might even be identical. Now, sometimes some companies would actually do that on purpose, but if this is an attack, which seems to be the case, what would we call this type of attack? Is it A, whaling? Now, you probably already know that's not the answer because literally a couple of questions ago, I explained to you what whaling is. That is if I am attacking your company and I'm going after a specific person, a very high individual like your CEO, or if I'm going after someone famous like a celebrity. Nowhere here does it mention about going after a certain individual's details. No. So it's absolutely not whaling. Is it B, an evil twin? That is very possible, folks. So far, that actually might very well be the answer here. Evil twin is when you or someone go and make a hotspot, a wireless network in other words, that's got the exact same name or a very flippant close name to the original hotspot. And that is in the hopes of tricking people into connecting to the wrong SSID. And when they do that, you can go and, well, hack them, get all kinds of important information from them, possibly even get the password to the real SSID from them, and then go and connect to their real SSID since you've got the password now. So B is so far the answer. C, impersonation. Yes and no. And I suppose you could say it's impersonation, but what do we call that in IT if it's impersonation? We don't call it impersonation. We call it an evil twin if someone's trying to mimic your SSID. So B and C is the same thing, except we don't call it impersonation. We call it evil twin. Is it D, vishing? Vishing is when I'm fishing for information, but I'm specifically doing it via what? Voice calls, which is why there's a V in the front. It's because I'm doing a phone call. So if I am phoning you in the hopes of tricking you into giving me information, maybe I'm pretending to be your bank, like a very previous question we had, that would be vishing. We're not doing that here. So the answer remains B, guys. Question 57. One of your clients has a data center which is required to destroy SSDs that contain sensitive information. Which of the following is the best method to use for physical destruction of SSDs? Now, earlier in this video, I don't remember where it was way earlier in this video, I did actually mention all the possible methods you can go and use to destroy a hard drive. I even explained to you in which order they would be the best. So, looking at the possible answers, let's see if any of these jog your memory. A. Low-level formatting. No, guys, that's going to wipe the hard drive, but it's not a very good way of wiping the hard drive. So we want to destroy the hard drives, not just wipe them, destroy. A is going to wipe the information, but if anyone knows what they're doing, you can actually go and recover it. The hard drive is not destroyed with formatting. Whether it be high-level formatting, standard formatting, lower-level formatting, all of those would not destroy the hard drive. All of them you can go and recover the data. So it's not A. Is it B? Erasing. Erasing is the same as formatting, folks. You can go and delete this stuff. You can go and format this stuff. It's the same thing. Can still be recovered. Alright, so is it C? Shredding. That's the one I mentioned to you guys earlier in this video where I said shredding a hard drive to bits and pieces. It's a special shredder that rips it to actual bits and pieces. That is actually one of the answers. And so far, that probably is the answer. D, wiping. Wiping is the same as formatting again, folks. So A, B, and D is completely out. The only one that's viable here is shredding. So once again, if you don't remember how to destroy a hard drive, folks, it'll be either shredding, which is ripping it to bits and pieces, or incineration, which is melting it down to molten metal. Those are the two best options. That is followed shortly by drilling a hole for the freaking hard drive. And then after that, it'll be degaussing. So first, shredding or incineration, they're basically equally good, since both of them completely destroy the hard drive. The second best option would probably be to go and use a drill, to drill physical holes through that hard drive. And then in third place, I would go and put degaussing. Question 58. One of your users has a corporate phone which was stolen, and the device contains trade secrets. Oh boy. Which of the following technologies should be implemented to mitigate this risk? And once again, we've got to choose two by the looks of things. Alright, so we want to mitigate this type of risk. So if someone's phone gets stolen again in the future, maybe not now, but in the foreseeable future, should someone's phone get stolen again, and that's probably going to happen again, what can we do so that we don't have to exactly worry about it? Is it A, global positioning system? No, guys, that's a GPS. So that's something the user would use to find out where the heck they are or where they are going. It's not going to mitigate this in any formal way. Is it B, device encryption? Yes, that's a very good answer. And so far, I think that probably is one of the two answers I would choose. So device encryption is not going to give us the device back. I mean, once it's stolen, it's stolen. But at least if the device is encrypted, we know that the perpetrator, the thief, will not be able to get their hands on any sensitive information. If they have the device, they can strip it for spares, but they will not be able to retrieve any information from it. So at least I will be able to sleep at night. Is it answer C? Firewall. Firewall is only while you are using the device. So while you're using the device, the applications and stuff that's on the device, so that they don't get compromised. Or if they try and access the internet, you can go and control them when they can access the internet, how they can access the internet, and you can go and control what things online can access your phone. So this is not going to have any effect on someone actually stealing the device. So C is completely out. Answer D, remote wipe. So I'm going to choose that as my second answer for now, until I see the two remaining answers. Remote wipe is actually a very popular answer I've seen in the A+ exam. They like saying remote wipe this, remote wipe that. But in reality, remote wipe, folks, doesn't actually really work very well when it comes to a stolen device. Because one of the first things they do when they steal your phone, tablet, or whatever, is they turn it off. Because they don't want you calling this device while they just stole it. Because then you're going to catch them red-handed. If they turn it off, if it's got a SIM card in it, they will take the SIM card out. So since the device is not on any form of Wi-Fi network or mobile network, it will not be able to receive the instruction that says wipe yourself. So in reality, it doesn't actually really work, but that is always still an answer in the exam for some stupid reason. So remote wipe, yes, I suppose that is a possible answer because of what I know what A+ likes. Is it E, antivirus? No, antivirus is going to help prevent infections or help get rid of infections, but it's not going to prevent in any way or manner the theft of this device. Is it F, remote backup? No. How is a backup going to prevent someone from stealing this device? No. So remote backup might help you recover your information, but it's not going to help prevent people from getting their hands on trade secrets. So you might still have a copy of the trade secrets since you went and remotely backed up the trade secrets, but we want to prevent people getting their hands on these trade secrets. How do we prevent people from getting those trade secrets off the phone that they just stolen? Is a backup going to prevent them from doing so? No. Is an antivirus going to prevent them from doing so? No. Firewall? No. Global positioning system? No. So the only two answers that's viable here is B and D. B is a definite hard yes. D is a I'm going to say meh. But I have to choose two answers. So the only one that's left here is D. So D is a meh. But B, yes, that's a very hard yes. Question 39. An employee at your company calls your help desk regarding an issue with their laptop PC. The user claims that after a Windows update, they can no longer use certain locally attached devices, and the reboot has not fixed the issue. Which of the following should you perform to fix the issue? Yeah, did you notice they said a reboot did not fix the issue? Because we always make that famous IT joke where we said, have you tried turning it off and on again? Because it surprisingly does fix a lot of things. Now this question, they specifically say a restart did not fix the issue. Alright, so we know the machine did an update. After it did the update, the machine no longer works so nice. Certain things just don't work. Certain devices that's attached to the device no longer works. So is it answer A, check for updates? No, because you just did an update. So why would there immediately be an update again? No, they literally just said they did an update. So it probably has the latest updates already. So that is the cause of the freaking issue here. So we're not going to do A. Is it B, roll back updates? You could do that. I mean, I'm not going to rule it out. So far, B is possible. Rolling back updates might fix the problem, but you need to know which one it is. I actually have done this on some people's machines. So the correct way to do this would probably be to roll back the update as the culprit and then to go and turn off updates. Because as soon as you roll back that update or remove that update, the machine at some point is going to update again. It's going to put that update back again, and you're going to set up this issue again. So rolling back update normally needs to be done in conjunction with turning off your update services and all that kinds of stuff. So yeah, guys, if you want to roll back updates, you're gonna have to do them one by one by one. You can't just go and roll them all back. You're gonna have to do them one by one in most cases. So if you want to do this manually, you can do this in control panel. You can go to your add remove features or programs and features. You go in there. If you go to your programs, you'll find on the left there's a button that says remove updates. Alternatively, you can go into your new control panel in Windows 10 or 11, which is your settings app. And if you go there to Windows Update, there you will also see the updates that has been installed, and you can go remove them one by one until you find the pesky culprit. A word of advice to you guys: if you plan on removing updates, first do a system restore. Make a system restore point. Though you don't have to do a system restore, you should actually just make a point, make a restore point, so that if you remove an update and it ends up making more harm than good, then at least you can go roll back. Looking down to see, it says disable the Windows Update service. That is a very good one. So disabling the Windows Update service is part of the solution. That probably is the solution in this question, but in real life, I would say roll back the updates and disable the Windows Update service. So the best answer here is C, followed by B, but I would actually combine those two in real life. That would actually be the actual answer. So do B first and then C. But if I have to compare between B and C, I'm going to say C. And then answer D, antivirus scan. Antivirus scan is not going to make any difference here because the issues have already taken place here. It's an update, so it's very unlikely to be a virus. I mean, it's possible. I have seen it, but it's unlikely. So the answer, folks, is C. But in real life, I would say roll back and then go and do C. Question 40. You and your IT security team are implementing a new group policy that will return a computer to the login after 3 minutes. Which of the following best describes the change in policy? Alright, so basically what this question is getting at, after 3 minutes of inactivity, this machine needs to lock itself. It's a form of security. This company, or you guys, are improving the security for people. Because you get a lot of people that will stand up from the machine, they'll go get a cup of coffee, they'll go to the restroom, but they don't actually lock the machine. And this is normally done by pressing the Windows key and L, like we said earlier in this video. That's the little flag one at the bottom left in your keyboard with the L key. It's going to lock the screen. Now, we know most people are not going to do that because they're just plain stupid. Some of them are lazy. Some of them just don't care. So how do we mitigate that? By making it happen automatically after an X amount of time. Now, this question mentions it happens automatically after 3 minutes. So what does this describe? What is this change in policy? Is it A, login, lockout attempts? No. The person was already logged in. It's not saying anything here about locking someone out. It just says the machine will log in. It just says you will have to log back in after 3 minutes. Log back in. Not log you out. Just log back in after 3 minutes. So it's not lockout attempts. So it's not A. Is it B, screen lock? Yes. You're doing that automatically, but you can also do this manually. Manually would be the Windows key and L, pressing those two at the same time. Or if someone is inactive for a certain amount of time, 3 minutes or 5 minutes, that's a screen lock. It kicks in automatically after an X amount of time. So the answer is B. Looking at answer C, disable the Windows Update service. This has got nothing to do with Windows Updates, now does it? D, maximum concurrent sessions. So how many people can be logged into this device at the same time? No, they just said after 3 minutes it needs to ask the person to log back in. It didn't say anything about preventing more than one person from logging in or preventing this amount of people from logging in, or only this amount of people can be logged in. Nowhere in the question do they state that. So the answer remains B, folks. Question 41. One of your clients called the help desk to report that a machine that recently updated is no longer working. Uh-oh. You check the latest logs to see what updates were deployed, but nothing was deployed in more than 3 weeks. Which of the following should you do to best resolve the issue? Alright, so this client thinks it was an update. They called our help desk, and when we check the logs, we see, you know what? It wasn't an update because this machine hasn't updated for the last 3 weeks, so it's probably something else. Now we need to try and figure out what it is. So what is the best thing to do to resolve this issue? Is it answer A, advise that the help desk will investigate and follow up at a later stage? That doesn't sound very professional to me. I mean, to tell the customer or the client or the user that we will investigate, that doesn't sound too shabby. But to tell them we will follow up at a later stage sounds very unprofessional to me. It sounds like we're going to take our sweet time with it. So I'm not very keen on A. B, offer to wipe and reset the device for the customer. Now that sounds a bit extreme. I mean, it'll probably get the job done, but nowhere do they mention about backing up the machine or anything like that. So there's a very good chance this customer is going to start from scratch. They're going to lose all their data. It's in a very, very, very extreme way to get the problem solved. So I'm not very keen on B, but at the moment B is the best answer. C, put the client on hold and escalate the call to a manager. Now, why would you want to escalate this to a manager? I mean, it's not that complicated. So normally, if you have been troubleshooting the issue for quite some time and you still don't find a solution to it, then you would go and escalate to a higher tier, but not necessarily a manager. Now, answer D says use open-ended questions to further diagnose the issue. Now, that sounds like the best option here, in my opinion. Open-ended questions, folks, if you don't know what that is when you ask the customer, the user, or the employee a question where they've got to give you more than a one-word answer. So a closed-ended question would be if they give you a yes or a no answer, as an example. Open-ended questions would be if I say, in your opinion, when last did this machine start? When would you say these symptoms started? Or can you explain to me the symptoms you've been experiencing, or since when have you been experiencing? You're kind of trying to force the customer to give you more than a one-word answer. So in their own words, they're going to explain to you things. And when they do that, that'll sometimes lead you to the cause of this issue. They might not realize it. It's kind of like when you go to the doctor. The doctor's going to ask you what's wrong. You're going to mention your symptoms. Now, you might not notice that you're actually giving them the answer because, I mean, what do we know? We're not doctors here. But as soon as you start mentioning your symptoms and the combination of your symptoms, the doctor will sometimes know what's wrong with you without even diagnosing you. That's called experience. And the same thing happens here with us. We are basically computer doctors, if you think about it. So as soon as the customer starts explaining their symptoms to us, in a couple of informations, then we'll probably know what the issue is without even diagnosing it. Question 42. The company of one of your clients is retiring old workstations, and they need a certificate of destruction for all hard drives. Which of the following would be best to perform on hard drives to ensure the data is unrecoverable? Yeah, guys, so what basically happens is a lot of companies, when they've got old computers, instead of just throwing them away, they would either sell it to their employees at a reduced rate, they'll go and donate it maybe to schools, they'll recycle it, things like that. Now, very often you'll find they might actually go and destroy these species, especially the hard drives. Now, you can't just go and destroy them. I mean, you might say, okay, let me just take them home and just go and burn them or destroy them myself. The problem with that is you will not have a certificate of destruction. And in most medium to large size companies, they get audited. And the auditor is going to come in there and he or she's going to say, okay, cool, you say you've destroyed these hard drives, but where's the proof? So how will they know that you have actually destroyed these? There's no proof of it. That's where the certificate of destruction comes into play. It's normally a third party. It's a different company. They come in, they collect the PCs or the hard drives, they will destroy it, they write down the serial numbers, and they issue you or your company a certificate of destruction, which you can put on file. And when the time comes for the auditors to come in, you can present this to the auditors. Alright, so how do we destroy these hard drives though? And I think we've covered this like twice already in this video. I mentioned to you guys what's the best ways of doing it. So which of the following would be best to perform on a hard drive to ensure the data is unrecoverable? Is it low-level formatting? No. any form of formatting, guys, whether it be A or B there, you can see A and B says low-level formatting, standard formatting. You can always recover that data. I can do it now for you. You can always recover that data. Every last bit of it can always be recovered. So the hard drive has not been physically destroyed. You just wipe the data, but it's still there technically. Is the answer C? Drilling. In other words, drilling a hole through it. So far, that's a good answer because that was one of the things I mentioned to you guys earlier in this video is to actually go and drill holes through the hard drive because then it's unrecoverable. So far, C is one of my two answers. D. Incineration. That's to melt it down to molten metal. Does that sound familiar to anyone here? Yes, because that's one of the two answers. So you can go and do incineration to melt it down. You can go do shredding to rip it to bits and pieces. Or you can go and drill it. Now the last one will probably be to go and deguzz it, but deguzz is not even in this list. So the two answers here, guys, is incineration and drilling. It's not recycling. It's not erasing. Question 43. You are monitoring an unusual amount of network traffic from a kiosk machine and need to investigate to determine the source of the traffic. Which of the following tools can you use to view which processes on the kiosk machine are connecting to the internet? All right, so we've got a machine. It's the kiosk machine. It's got a very weird, suspicious amount of traffic in the background, and we need to try and figure out what the heck this is. What traffic is that? What's causing it in the background? What tool can we use, or what platform can we use to figure this out? Now, looking at the answers in front of us, is it Resource Monitor? So far, that's a very good option, guys. So Resource Monitor is a free built-in tool on client operating systems as well as a server operating system. It allows you to monitor your memory usage, your hard drive usage, your network usage, CPU usage, all those kinds of things. And it's in a lot more detail. So if you were to go and open something like your task manager, where you can also go and monitor those 4 counters, the task manager does not show it to you in as much detail. But you'll notice if you go to the performance tab in your task manager, there's actually a little hidden button at the bottom that says resource monitor. So if you were to see something funky going on there and you would like to investigate it further, they know one of the tools you want to use to do that is Resource Monitor, which is why they've added a shortcut for you to that tool in Task Manager. I normally just type it into start or the search bar and it'll pop up. So far that's actually the answer here. B. Reliability Monitor. No. Also a free built-in tool, very cool tool to go and use, but that shows you over a course of time, let's say a week or a month or a couple of months, when the system experienced issues, what days it was, what time of day it was, what the issue was. It's kind of like a log of sorts, if you want to call it that, except it's in a nice little GUI interface. It's not going to show you real time what is causing this traffic, so it's not B. C. Performance Monitor. Now, Performance Monitor is also a free built-in tool. I mean, A, B, and C, all of them are free built-in tools, except D. D is not a tool. So it's a free built-in tool, this Performance Monitor. You can go and add what we call counters onto that tool. And once again, on a graph, it'll show you very accurately whatever that counter is. This could be, your RAM usage, CPU usage, things like that. So I suppose technically you could go and add a network counter in there. But Performance Monitor, folks, is not a very user-friendly tool. It's actually a very un-user-friendly tool. If it's been set up already for you, then it's not too shabby. But if you are the person tasked with having to set up this bad boy, it's just terrible. So the best one here, the easiest one here, the quickest one here would be Resource Monitor. The second best one here would probably be Performance Monitor, but that's via a long way. The last answer there is System Information. It's when you go type in something like msinfo32 into run, and that'll literally just show you information about the system, like what's the system's operating system, the build, the addition, how much memory you've got, what motherboard make and model do you have, that kinds of stuff. It's literally just system information. It does not show you real-time information like network traffic. So that would be the Resource Monitor. If you were to open it up, you go to a tab called the Network tab, and there it'll show you real-time all kinds of things that's causing network traffic. So, if I were to go to Performance Monitor, yes, I can go and add network counters there, but how do I know what I'm looking for? It's just going to show you how much network you're using, but it's not going to necessarily show you what is using your network. Resource Monitor, that one, is going to show you what is using your resources. So if I were to go to the Network tab, it's going to show me what is using my network. Which services is using it? What is using it so much? That's why resource monitor is the better one. Never mind it being more user-friendly, it's going to show you more accurately what is actually causing the high usage. Question 44. Which of the following physical security controls can help someone prevent laptops from being stolen? Yeah, because laptops is something that's quite mobile. You can shove it under your shirt and you can walk out of a place and nobody would know that you've just stolen a laptop. So what security, physical security I might add, can we use to prevent someone from doing this, especially in a company environment? Is it A, encryption? Now, encryption is going to add on to your security, but we don't want to prevent someone from getting the data off the laptop. That's not what they're saying in this question. We want to physically prevent someone from taking the laptop to begin with. So encryption is not going to stop that. Passwords, that's just going to add on to the security of the laptop, but it's not going to physically prevent someone from taking the laptop. Could it be C, an equipment lock? Yes, so far that's my answer. You'll find some laptops, maybe not all laptops, they've got a special place on the side of the laptop which you can go put a little chain in there. It's like a special kind of chain. It looks almost like a bike chain, if you've ever seen a bicycle chain. It locks in there. It normally works with like a combination lock. And you can take that chain, which looks like a bicycle chain, and you can tie it to like a table or something that's quite sturdy, that's fixed. So now you can leave the laptop unattended. I actually do this all the time with my equipment. So whenever I go to clients, I've got lots of laptops when I go and train clients at their site. And these laptops, I can't keep an eye on all of these laptops at all times. What if I want to go out for lunch? What if I want to leave the laptops at the client overnight? So then I use equipment locks to lock these laptops to fixed fixtures, and then when I get there the next time, then the laptops will still at least be there. So the answer is C, folks. D, multi-factor authentication. That's just asking multiple digital forms of authentication to prove you are who you claim to be, but it's not going to prevent someone from physically taking it. E is also a form of physical security, but that's not going to stop someone from stealing a laptop. Bollards are something you would find maybe like in a parking lot, or basically where there's vehicles in most cases. It's generally used to prevent vehicles from driving into certain places or onto certain services. If you go into Google and you go type in the word bollards, you can find a nice little picture of what bollards looks like. It's generally used to prevent vehicles from going into certain locations. In no way or sense is that going to prevent someone from stealing a laptop. So the answer remains C, folks. Question 45. A malicious file was executed automatically when a flash drive was plugged in. Which of the following features would prevent this type of incident? Alright, so someone stuck in a flash drive into a USB port and there was a malicious file on this flash drive, but it gets executed automatically. Now, this is not something you can always block, but there is something you can go and do that'll block it most of the time, not always. And that, folks, is answer B, turning off autoplay. Now, for those of you that don't know, autoplay is normally what pops up as soon as you put a external drive or a flash drive or something like that into USB port. You'll notice in most cases, a little pop-up window would pop up on your screen. And depending on the type of files on that memory stick or that external drive, it'll give you suggestions on what you can use to open those types of files. It might just give you Explorer. If there's, let's say, some MP3 songs on there, it might give you suggestions on media players on this machine that you can go and use to open these MP3 files. If there's video files on there, it might give you a suggestion of Windows Media Player or Codec Player or VNC Player or whatever players you've got installed on this machine to open these files. If there's photos on there, it might give you suggestions on what programs can be used to open these photos. So that is autoplay. Now, for it to know or for it to give you suggestions, it needs to kind of sort of launch the flash drive to a certain extent to check what these files are or what kind of files they are. And when it does that, if there's a piece of malware on there, that normally triggers it. 9 out of 10 times, that malware gets triggered by autoplay. So what most technicians do, even I do this, any technician worth their salt would turn off autoplay on the machine. It's very easy to go and do that in your system settings. It's one tick box normally. You turn it off. It does not prevent your external drive or flash drive from working. Absolutely not. It'll still work just fine. It just won't pop up automatically. So if you go into your system settings, you turn it off. The next time you stick in your flash drive, nothing's going to pop up. You would actually have to go into your Explorer and open the flash drive manually. But before you do that, at least this gives you the opportunity to go and right click on that sucker now and say scan of antivirus. So it gives your antivirus a fighting chance at least. So it's not a firewall, it's not UAC, which is user account control, it's not disconnecting from the network. None of these is going to have any influence on flash drives popping up automatically. Question 46. Which of the following would prevent unauthorized access to a mobile device if it was left unattended? Now, the actual answer I want to give you guys is not even on this list. You know, the real answer won't always be on the list. That would be to go and put a timeout. You would remember from one of our earlier questions, you can go put a timeout. And then after 3 or 5 minutes, if the machine is unattended and it's just on idle, it'll lock itself automatically. So that'll probably be the best answer choice, but it's not a choice here. So which of the following would prevent unauthorized access to a mobile device, not a laptop or a desktop, a mobile device if it was left unattended? Is it the bring your own device policy? So if someone brings their own device to work for the purposes of work, like a phone, tablet, or laptop, that policy normally dictates what they can do and what they can't do on that device, but it's not going to enforce any security on that device. B, a PIN code. Now that sounds pretty good. So if I leave my phone on a desk now and someone steals it or grabs it or whatever, a PIN code will keep them from seeing information. They need the PIN code, or at the very least, they need to crack that PIN code first before they can get access to the information on that mobile device. So B is so far the best answer here. C, antivirus software. No, that is something you would use after you've gotten onto the device, and that will allow you to go and scan for malicious software or prevent the machine or this mobile device from getting malicious software. But it's not going to prevent unauthorized access to that mobile device. Is it D, operating system updates? No, that's going to make the device more secure digitally. So if you are actually using the device already and you're already logged on, that will prevent it from getting compromised. But it will not prevent someone from getting unauthorized access. So the only option out of these four that will prevent someone from getting unauthorized access is to put a PIN code on there. I mean, obviously in real life it could be more than that. And in real life you'll find some people have got fingerprint scanners, facial recognition, maybe there's a pattern you've got to draw on a screen. But the only option we see here that'll kind of mitigate this scenario in front of us is the PIN code one. Question 47. This is quite a long one, eh? One of your users is unable to access a web-based application. So in other words, this is software as a service. You verify that the computer cannot access any web pages at all. So it's not just the web-based application. This computer can access any web pages at all. Keep that in mind, folks. The computer obtains an IP address from the DHCP server, so that's good. You verify that the user can ping the local host, okay. They can ping the gateway, and they can ping any known IP addresses on the internet with a response. Okay, cool. So they can actually reach the internet. So when this user pings the local host, that's themselves, that works. They can ping the gateway, so that's probably the router. So up until the router, everything is fine. And they can even ping things on the internet via the IP address. So that means you do have internet access, you just can't load pages. So we know for a fact there's internet, just can't load pages. So which of the following is the most likely reason for this particular problem? Is it A, wrong VLAN, so that's virtual LAN, was assigned? No, guys. If you were on the wrong VLAN, you would not be able to ping the gateway, and definitely not any IP address on the internet. You would not be able to do that. We do have internet. We have it. We just can't load pages, but we do have internet. So we're not on the wrong VLAN. If we were on the wrong VLAN, we would not be able to ping those IPs. B, firewall is blocking the application. No. They specifically said you can also not load any web pages. It's not just the web application. It's also any page you try and load. So if it was the firewall, at least some things would work. We can't load anything, so it's not the firewall. Is it C, incorrect DNS address was assigned? So far, I'm inclined to think that's the answer because the DNS generally converts IPs to names and names to IPs. It does what we call name resolution. So when you go and type in something like www.youtube.com, it goes and checks. The DNS will go and check what is the IP address for youtube.com. It's going to give it to your machine, and your machine would go to that IP address. So that is why you're able to ping the freaking IP addresses, but you can't actually load the web pages because the DNS address that your machine has is wrong. The DNS server it's trying to reach does not exist, or it's the wrong DNS server. So there's no DNS server there that can convert the names to IPs and IPs back to names. So your machine has the IPs, or it can ping the IPs, but when someone types in youtube.com, it doesn't have a clue where that is because it doesn't have a DNS server that it can ask, hey buddy, where is this magical place called youtube.com? The DNS would normally tell it, hey buddy, youtube.com is blah 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 blah, and then your machine would know where to go. So there's no DNS assigned at the moment, or it's the wrong one. So far, C is the answer. D, the browser cache needs to be cleared. Now guys, if it was the browser cache, some things would at least load. Not everything is not going to work. So that is your temporary memory in your browser. It generally makes things load faster, and it speeds things up, and it uses less data. So no, that's not the answer here. The answer remains C, DNS. Question 48. You removed a virus from a user's device. The same user returns the same device a week later with the same virus. Wow. So whatever they did, they probably went and did it again. This is most likely a stupid user. Which of the following should you do to prevent future infections? Should you go and do A, disable system restore? No, guys, because if you're going to disable system restore, that might possibly prevent you from restoring this machine again. So the next time this person brings that machine, you might not be able to restore it, because that's one of the tools we use to fix this person's machine, is to set it back in time to a working point in time. So A is a bad thing to go and do. Is it B? Educate the end user. That might be a very good answer, because the fact that they brought the same device back with the same issue again means that it's a user problem. They probably are doing something stupid, something not supposed to do. So educating the user could actually end up solving this problem. You could tell them, don't download from unsavory websites. Don't open attachments from people you were not expecting attachments from. Don't even open emails if you were not expecting those emails from those people. All of these are things you can go and tell the user not to go and do, and hopefully that'll stop them from doing it again, and then they hopefully won't get this freaking virus again. So B is so far a good answer. C, remove somebody user's privileges. This is the user's own device, so removing some of their privileges is just going to make matters worse. They won't be able to go and do their work. They won't be able to do whatever they're supposed to be able to go and do. So C is not a very good option. D, install the latest operating system patches. That could technically solve the problem, but it depends on how this virus is getting on the machine. If this person is just downloading random files or clicking random files, having the latest patches might not solve this issue. So the best answer still remains B, folks, to educate the user. You're only as strong as your weakest link, and unfortunately the weakest link is normally the user. Question 49. The system drive of one of your users is nearly full, and you need to free up some space for them. Which of the following tools should you use? All right, so we need to free up some space on the system drive. Is it answer A, disk defragment? No, folks, that is the tool we use to go and reorganize the hard drive. And when we reorganize the hard drive, the system will be faster, it's going to run smoother, but it's not going to give you more space. It's just going to run faster because it's going to know where what is. So A will make it faster, but it's not going to give you more space. Is it B, check disk? No, this is a built-in tool we use to go and check for damaged clusters and sectors on our hard drive. So when you start experiencing, files and stuff that's getting corrupt and what have you, or the system crashed, that's the tool we'll go and use. So this is not to go and free up space, it's to go and repair the hard drive. Digitally speaking, of course. Is it C, disk cleanup? Yes, disk cleanup will go and, for example, clear your cache, delete your temporary files, go maybe empty your recycle bin. It would actually possibly clean up a lot of space. So I've actually had cases where that would actually clean up to about 40 gigs or 100 gigs in some cases. Is it D, resource monitor? No, guys, resource monitor is literally just a monitor just to show you what's going on your machine, your CPU, hard drive, memory, network, but it doesn't actually free up any space. It'll just show you what the heck is going on. You can maybe go and kill a service, but that's about it. So the answer is C, disk cleanup. Question 50, almost at the end. You are selling up a newly built computer. Which of the following is the fastest way to install Windows 10? Is it an in-place upgrade? No, guys. They said it's a newly built computer. A newly built computer means it does not have an operating system on it. So this was an old computer. It 10 to 1 already had an operating system on it. So an in-place upgrade is something you do on a machine that already has an operating system, and you're going to upgrade this to a newer version of Windows. So they have Windows 8, you'll upgrade to Windows 10 maybe. If they've got Windows 10, you'll upgrade to Windows 11. This is on condition that you stay on the same architecture and preferably on the same edition. But this is a new machine, so an in-place upgrade is physically impossible, so it's not A. Is it B, factory reset? That also requires the machine to have an existing operating system on it, and that would basically go and reset it back to defaults. So B is also physically impossible. Is it C, system restore? System restore also impossible because it also requires you to have an existing operating system. And if we did have an existing operating system on there, B would be the better one because B would put it back the way it was. I mean, it'll actually give you the option to decide whether you want to keep data or not. Do you want to keep your programs or not, your settings or not. System restore only restores system settings, not your data. So it's not going to wipe all the data and all that kinds of stuff. It does not affect your data. So A, B, and C is physically not possible, but if they were possible, B would probably be the best way to go. D is the answer. Unattended installation. So that is when you go and install stuff automatically, or at least somewhat automatically. You get high touch installation, low touch installation, which is sometimes referred to as light touch installation, and then you get zero touch installation. Zero touch is when it's completely automated. Low touch or light touch, that's when it's somewhat automated, and we normally use an answer file for that. So this could be done via, for example, something like MDT, Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, but it's not limited to that. There's lots of third-party tools out there that you guys can go and use. So you'll go use an answer file, and for the most part, Windows 10 will be installed automatically, usually via the network. Alright folks, and then before we move on to the next question, if you are still watching the video up until this point in time, well done. I can see you guys are really putting a lot of time and dedication into your studies because, I mean, you would have covered around roughly 100 questions by now if you watched the first video as well for quarter 2. So well done. I wish you guys all good luck. A little game I like to play with these videos, this is for the people that normally watch the videos up until this point, is to put a secret phrase or a secret code word in the videos. And then if you watch the video up until this point, you'll know what that phrase or code word is. And when you just put it in the comment section down below, and you can go and, make a sentence of the secret word or the secret phrase. It's just for fun. Only the people that watch the video up until this point would actually know what the code is all about. And if anyone is just randomly going through the comment section that did not actually watch the full video, they'll be like, what the heck is going on here? What is this code word about? They'll have no idea what's going on. So it's just for fun and gags. But feel free to still ask your normal questions in the comment section down below too, guys. If you've got any questions about these questions or anything in the course in general, please feel free to ask your questions down below, and I will gladly assist you. Now, as for the secret word or the secret phrase, today's one is Easter eggs. I kid you not. If you're wondering why, it's because I'm recording this video during Easter period. So I figured, why not? I mean, we're recording during Easter, so let's just make it something funny, Easter eggs. So make a sentence of the word Easter egg or Easter eggs, or you can literally just go type it as is, but it'll be more fun if you guys go and make a sentence of the word Easter egg or Easter eggs. Drop it in the comment section down below. Just stick to YouTube's rules and guidelines, and let's have some fun with this. And then, yeah, guys, if you haven't done it already, please remember to give this video a like. I do appreciate it when you guys do that. Now on to question 51. You notice that a server on a company network has extremely high CPU utilization. Upon further inspection, you see that the server is consistently communicating with an IP address that is traced back to a company that awards digital currency for solving hash algorithms. Huh! So if you guys paid attention earlier in the video, you would know what the answer is now. Which of the following is most likely used to compromise the server? Is it A, crypto mining malware? Yep, because crypto mining generally uses your CPU or your GPU to go and solve what we call hash algorithms, and by doing so, they get rewarded what we call cryptocurrency, normally like Bitcoin or something like that. Now, it's more common to find that your GPU is running very high because the GPU generally does this better, but a CPU can also be used for this. It's not as good as the GPU, but it can be used for this. So the answer, guys, is A. It's not ransomware because ransomware would have encrypted your files and folders and stuff and demanded you pay cryptocurrency to release your data. So nowhere does it say that. It's not C, keylogger. Keylogger would have recorded you or user's keystrokes and sent it to some perpetrator somewhere else so they can go and hopefully get a hold of something sensitive and something of value. Spyware actually includes keylogger. Spyware is not just keylogger. It's keyloggers and all kinds of other stuff as well. But generally, once again, it is going to check what you're doing and it's going to send the information to someone somewhere else in the hopes of getting something of value. So the answer, folks, is A. Question 52. One of your users report that their screen turns off very quickly after sitting for a few moments. They mention the screen is also very dim when not plugged into an outlet. Everything else seems to be functioning normally though. Which of the following Windows settings should be configured? Is it the screensaver? Yeah, maybe. I mean, the fact that it logs off very quickly, that could be a screensaver setting. I mean, the screensaver is one place you can go and configure the screen to lock automatically after a certain period of time, but it does not explain why the screen would stay dim when not plugged in. So, A, not, it seems like it's part of the answer, but not the full answer. B, power plants. Now that seems like the answer, and it actually is the answer, folks. B, power plants is something you can go and configure so that if the machine is not active for a certain period of time, it automatically turns off the screen. This is to conserve power. This is especially useful if you're on a laptop, and especially even more so if the laptop's not plugged into a power outlet. It'll make the battery last longer and longer. And it also explains why the screen is going dim when it's not plugged in. Power plants do that. So if it's in power saving mode, you'll find that the screen will go dim. If it's in normal mode or high performance mode, the screen will stay bright. So, and you can actually go and manually change the screen, dimness or brightness as well when it's in these modes. But generally, if it automatically goes dim, it's because it's on battery power, and this is usually as a result of your power plants. C and D is not the answer. C is something that you would go and use. It's a tool that's built into both client and server operating systems. It shows you all the hardware that's installed in your machine. I've mentioned this countless times in this video already. It shows you whether they are enabled, disabled, whether they've got drivers installed, if it's the correct driver. You can go and install or uninstall drivers there. That's basically what Device Manager is all about. D is also something we've mentioned countless times in this video. So to get to that, you would type in msinfo32 in the run command, and it'll basically just display information about this machine, like the motherboard make and model. It'll show you what operating system edition and build you've got installed, your memory, your CPU. It'll show you all kinds of information about the machine, which could be quite useful. Question 53. You receive a call from a user who clicked on a web advertisement. Oh boy. Now every time the user moves the mouse, a pop-up displays across their monitor. Oh man, that sounds annoying. Which of the following procedures should you perform? Alright, so what can we do about this pesky pop-up? It just happens, guys. Sometimes online, you'll click on an advertisement or you'll download something, and before you know it, you get these flippin' annoying pop-ups that keep popping up. You'll be browsing Facebook, you'll be browsing YouTube, and as you're doing so, randomly these pop-up ads would keep popping up asking you to buy this or buy that, or this is special on this or this is special on that. It's very, very annoying. Anyway, so what can we do? If they say we need to choose two answers, is it A, reinstall the browser? Guys, that normally does not solve the issue. You'll notice often if you go to a different browser, it'll do the same thing. Or if you uninstall the browser and you reinstall it, it'll do the same thing because this is malware. It's now on the system. It's not on the browser. It's on the system as a whole. Is it B, restart the machine? The malware is on there already, guys. Restarting the machine is not going to make any difference. So it's not A, it's not B. So we already know the answer C and D without even looking at them. But let's have a look at what C and D is. C says perform a malware scan. Yes, because it's malware. You've gotten some sort of malware on this machine. Might be adware or something like that. And the only way you can get that out is to format the machine or do some sort of malware scan. D, boot in safe mode. Why is that such a good answer? Because when you boot in safe mode, not only does most of your drivers not start up, most services does not start up, including most viruses do not start up. It gives you the opportunity to go and scan the machine without this thing kicking in, so to speak. Question 54. An application user in your company received an email indicating the version of the application currently in use will no longer be sold. Users of this version of the application will no longer receive patches or updates either. Which of the following indicates a vendor no longer supports a product? Is it A? No. A is acceptable usage policy. This is something that the users would normally have to agree to be able to use a device in the company. The most common place you would find this is if you're about to log on to a work PC. So if it's a desktop or a laptop that belongs to the company, especially if it's in the office, you'll find most often on the logon screen when you're about to type in your password, there it'll make you agree to a company policy first before you can log into this machine. That's acceptable usage policy. Basically, it says what you're allowed to use this machine for and what not, what you can do with it and what not. It's basically rules and guidelines for the company assets. So it's not that. Is it B? End user license agreement. No, that is if you normally want to go and use an operating system or a software The vendor makes you agree to their agreements that basically says you won't pirate this, you won't go and sell this to people that does not have a license, that kinds of nonsense. Is it C? End of life. Yes, folks, that's the answer. End of life. EOL stands for end of life. It basically specifies when an operating system, when a software, or when a piece of hardware will come to its end of life. Generally, when that software operating system comes to its end of life, it might still work, but there will be no support for it anymore. So if you have any issues with it, you cannot contact the vendor for assistance because they're going to shrug their shoulders and say, sorry, we no longer support this product. And if there's any updates or patches you want, you're not going to get them because, once again, they no longer support it. D is also not the answer since we already know it's C. D is user account control. That is something that's built into your Windows operating system ever since Windows Vista or Vista, however you want to pronounce that. Ever since that was released in 2008, that has been built into your Windows operating system, and it's a form of security. Kind of like a firewall. It is, but it's not. But yeah, that's got nothing to do with this. So the answer is C, folks. Question 55. One of your users was in a coffee shop where their corporate laptop was stolen with proprietary work information. Ooh, yikes. The user logged into their laptop with a simple password and no other security mechanisms were in place. Oh man, it just gets worse. Which of the following would most likely prevent the stored data from being recovered? Well, it's too late now, but going forward, what can we do to prevent this kinds of stuff from happening? What can we do to prevent the data from getting off that laptop? We can't stop them from stealing the laptop. But should they steal it in the future again, what can we do to prevent them from getting their hands on the data? Is it A, biometrics? Not a bad option. I mean, it is extra security on the laptop. So biometrics, it's not bad, but it can still be bypassed. And should they bypass it, they'll be able to get their hands on the data. So A is not bad, but let's first check the other ones. B, full disk encryption. This could possibly be something like BitLocker. If you're looking at Windows, it'll be BitLocker. If it's Apple, I think they call it File Vault. I can't remember, it was earlier in this video. I think it's called File Vault on Apple. So full disk encryption. If someone steals that laptop now, it won't mean anything to them. They can maybe strip it for space, but they won't be able to use the hard drive, and they won't be able to recover anything from the hard drive because it's encrypted. Unless you're the owner, you won't get anything from that hard drive. So B is the best answer. I suspect that will be the answer. C, enforced strong system password. That's also access security. That's also good. It's better than what we had, but it's not as good as B. So C forces the user to have a strong, long, complicated password because in the question it says the user had a simple password. So C is better than what the user had. A is better than what the user had. But none of those two is as good as B. D says two-factor authentication, which means the user has to prove in two ways they are who they claim to be before they can get into the laptop. Also very good. A, C, and D, all three very good securities. All three better than what the user had, but none of those three is as good as B. B is still the best way to prevent people from getting their hands on the data because eventually they will crack those securities, and when they do, they will get the data. Encryption will prevent them from getting the data, ever. Question 56, folks. We're almost at the end. Hang in there. You discover that user input has been captured by a malicious actor. Which of the following malware types is most likely being used? Is it spear phishing? Now, phishing is when I contact someone, this could be you that I'm contacting, and I want to try and trick you into giving me information like username and password. Now, that's normal phishing, but this A says spear phishing. Now, if you don't know what spear phishing is, we're not talking about fishing in a dam or a lake or a river or the ocean or anything like that. That is when I target a specific individual in the company. I want to get a specific person's username and password. So that could be the administrator. This could be the CEO of a company. But I've got a specific person whose details I want. That is spear phishing. I'm not just randomly sending this out to random people, this email. I'm sending it to a specific person. I want to get a specific person's username and password. That is spear phishing. And that is not what's happening in this question. So it's not A. Is it B? Crypto miners. So that is when your CPU or GPU solves hash algorithms in exchange for cryptocurrency. Nowhere does it mention high CPU or GPU usage. Nowhere did they mentioning solving hash algorithms here. Nothing like that. So it's not B. C, ransomware. So that is malware, but it encrypts the user's data and files and folders and PC and all that in exchange for a ransom, which is normally in the form of cryptocurrency. None of that is mentioned in this question. They specifically say the user's input is being captured and it's being sent to someone somewhere else. That is answer D, guys. A keylogger. A keylogger records your keystrokes or the user's keystrokes and it sends it to the person somewhere else so they can see what you're typing. And if they do it correctly, they can possibly see your username and password or anything else of value. Question 57. You receive a help desk ticket from a user who is unable to update a phone. You investigate the issue and notice the following error message on their phone, which says insufficient storage space. Oh man. Now, guys, something to keep in mind. When a phone says insufficient storage space, it does not necessarily mean it has no space. It generally means it's got no space on the system itself. This actually happened to my wife as well. I bought her a phone the other day, a pretty decent phone, but the built-in memory is not as great. I think it's got like 32 gigs of built-in memory, 16 gigs or 32 gigs, I can't remember. And then I went and got her an external memory card, and I think this has got like, I don't know, 120 gigs or 250 gigs of storage. That is a lot, right? So there's lots of space on this phone, on the memory card, but ever so often when she tries to update her phone, it gives her an error. Actually, it is the exact same kind of error where it says insufficient storage space. And that is not because the memory card running out of space. It's because the phone's own memory has run out. So the way you solve that, and I'm probably going to give away the answer now, is to move some of the stuff on the phone's built-in memory to the memory card. So some of the built-in applications, you go and move them to the memory card. Your photos, your videos and stuff, you save that to the memory card. You want to try and free up some of that memory on the phone itself. In my case, for my wife, it'll be about 16 or 32 gigs. I want to free up some of that 16 or 32 gigs on the phone itself because that is where it downloads the update to. That is where it extracts the update to install the update. I know it's stupid, but that is where it is. That's how they're designed. So even though you've got lots of space on your external storage, like with my wife, she's got an external memory card. She's got lots of storage there. Doesn't matter. The update wants to download onto the phone's built-in memory. It wants to extract there. It wants to install there. So for this to work, you need to make sure the built-in memory is enough. You're going to have to move some of that stuff, or delete some of that stuff, or something in that regard. So I probably gave away the answer, but let's read the rest of this. While analyzing the phone, you do not discover any third-party applications or photos. So there's not even a lot of stuff on this phone. Which of the following is the best way to resolve this issue? Is it A, exchange the phone for a newer one? I mean, that would probably solve the problem, but that's not the best way. I mean, it specifically says best way to resolve the issue. Now, exchanging the phone is a little drastic. It'll get the job done, but it's drastic. So that's not necessarily the best option. B, upgrade the onboard storage. Normally with phones, you can't upgrade the onboard storage, so you're kind of stuck with what you have. C, allocate more space by removing factory applications. You could do that, but it's a little drastic. That's better than A. B is not possible, but it is better. C is better than A. But generally, you don't want to remove factory applications because quite often you need these factory applications. Maybe not all of them, but some of them you do need. So by, removing them, that won't solve it. I would just say move them to a different place, but don't remove them. D, move factory applications to external memory. Yes, that's what I said earlier. You don't have to remove them. Just move them to external memory. So go get yourself a memory card, put it into the phone, assuming it supports memory cards, and move your photos and videos and your applications to the memory card. Whatever you can move, you move. That's the answer, guys. D. Question 58. A user is unable to access several documents saved on a work PC. You discover the files were corrupted and you must change several system settings within the registry editor to correct the issue. Which of the following should you do before modifying the registry keys? So we know we're going to modify the registry keys, but what should we do before we do that? It's A, update the anti-malware software. No, guys, we're going to go into the registry there. We're not installing something. We're not downloading something. So why would I need to go and update my anti-malware software in this situation? It's not A. So B, create a restore point. Yes. So far that sounds like a good answer. That probably will be the answer. Whenever you're about to go and do any big serious system changes, it's always a good idea to go and make a backup, or at the very least make a system restore point, so that when you go and make these changes and stuff goes sideways and you realize, I made things worse, you can go into system restore, or you can refer to your backup and you can at least put it back the way you found it. So far B is the answer. C, run the PC in safe mode. That's not going to make a difference, guys. In safe mode, if you make the wrong change, it's still going to break the machine. So C is not going to make a difference. D, roll back the system updates. Rolling back system updates is not going to solve files being corrupted, guys. If it's corrupted, it's corrupted. Rolling back system updates is not going to prevent the files from being corrupted anymore. They will still be corrupted. So the answer still is B, folks. Question 59. One of your users connected an external hard drive but is unable to see it as a destination to save their files. Which of the following tools will allow the drive to be formatted? It's probably because this drive has not been formatted yet. So what tool can we use to format a drive? In this case, more specifically, an external drive. Is it A, disk management? Yes. Disk management, at least on the Windows operating system, is what we use to go and expand space, shrink space, partition hard drives, format hard drives, initialize hard drives, that kind of stuff. So the answer is A. B, disk cleanup is to free up space on a hard drive by removing temporary files, your cache, your recycle bin, that kind of stuff. We're not trying to free up space, we're trying to format a hard drive. C, disk defragmenter is to organize the hard drive so that stuff is more organized and so that the hard drive will perform faster. It will make your PC faster, but it will not format the hard drive. D is unrelated to the hard drive. The only thing you can do regarding hard drives with D is to install drivers. So D is to show you once again, I've said it so many times in this video, to show you all the hardware devices on your machine so you can see if they're enabled, disabled, so you can install drivers, remove drivers, that kind of stuff. Alright folks, and then moving on to question 60, the last one, and once we cover this, please do not disappear. Just want to mention a couple of things at the end of the video. So question 60, you see a file that is requesting payment to a cryptocurrency address. Which of the following should you do first? Is it quarantine the computer? I would say yes. Is it B, disable system restore? C, update the antivirus definitions? Or D, boot to safe mode? Guys, if you see any message on any computer ever that says you need to pay cryptocurrency, it's usually ransomware. It's probably one of the worst kinds of malware you can get. And one of the very first things you want to do then is quarantine that system, because there is a chance it might not have spread yet over the network. It probably has, but if there's even a slim chance that it has not, you want to prevent that from happening. So if that PC is plugged into the network via a network cable, you yank out that cable as quickly as you can. If it's connected to the Wi-Fi, you disconnect from the Wi-Fi. You even say forget network, because if you just disconnect, there's always a chance that it can go and reconnect itself automatically. So you want to go and click on the option that says forget network so that your PC does not remember the password. If it does not remember the password, it won't be able to reconnect automatically, and that could potentially save you a lot of damage from your other machines. The machine that's already infected, there's a very good chance you might lose everything on that machine, depending on what kind of backups you've got. But at least you would have quarantined it from infecting the rest of the machines on the network. Alright folks, so the answer here is A, quarantine the machine, because, well, it's ransomware. It's going to go and encrypt everything on that machine. Alright folks, we've reached the end of this video. Don't disappear just yet. So first of all, thank you very much for supporting the channel. If you have not done it already, please give this video a like. It does help me out a lot. You can think of that as payment for the video. I mean, I am doing this stuff for free for you guys after all. So please give the video a like if you haven't done that already. And if you'd like to know when I release other videos like this one, or if you'd like to know when I do my normal training videos, maybe also consider subscribing. At least then YouTube will inform you when my videos goes live. I want to give a special shout out and thank you to all of you guys that's supporting the channel. Even for those of you that just drop comments in the video descriptions down below. Man, even thank you for that, guys. So here is a screen of all the Patreon sponsors. Guys, thank you very much to each and every one of you guys for sponsoring this channel. I appreciate what you guys do. And here is a screen with the PayPal sponsors. Guys, thank you very much for your donations in the background. And then also thank you to everyone making those PayPal donations and just clicking on the thanks button below the videos. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do that also by clicking on the video description down below. All the details are there in the video description. If you want to sponsor the channel, or if you want to become a Patreon, if you want to make a donation, all of that's in the video description down below, guys. And then lastly, what I want to mention to you guys, the channel does have a Discord. If you've watched my previous videos, you would notice already. There's a Discord server. If you have Discord, feel free to join our server. Lots of people in there that's like-minded. All of them are studying courses like this one or other courses. You'll find me in that server. with lots of other experts as well. If you get stuck, you can ask for advice there. You can go into study groups. If other people are studying for the exact same exam as you guys can help one another. Or you can just come and help out, maybe if you know a lot of stuff, you can come and help the other guys out as well if you're bored. Alright guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Remember to give it a like, and I will see you in the next one.